What is up, motherfuckers? Two very different energy levels there, Aidan. Nicely done.
No, I just think it's good that we're starting one of our only family-friendly episodes with instant demonetization.
I think it's safe to say, without getting too ahead of ourselves already, that Wallace and Gromit... Wallace and Gromit?
Wallace and Gromit.
Wallace and Gromit. It's like the Scream episode all over again. This is going to be a feverish blur. Wallace and Gromit is anything but family-friendly, and I want to clarify that right now.
It's powerfully erotic.
It's powerfully erotic. It's the story of an interspecies gay couple with abusive undertones, and it's just not for kids, okay? It's not for kids.
I mean, trust Marc to make anything wholesome into something sinister. But we should say, although this is the Wallace and Gromit episode, if there are any children listening, you should stop listening now.
They've already heard too much, to be honest.
Children, stop.
You might as well stick around, kids. It's only going to get worse.
Go to bed. It's not.
Go to bed now.
Time.
Go to bed. Watch a Grand Day Out.
No, don't watch that, because apparently that's not child friendly. Watch, I don't know, Titan or Raw or any of Julia Demasier's films. I think they're appropriate for children.
We're going to obviously get to Titan at one point on this show, but the lady who directs those movies...
Julia Demarsier.
Yeah, I didn't want to say her name out of fear of butchering it, so I'm glad you did it.
Yeah.
But I feel like somebody should check on her, like, just make sure she's okay.
No, she's French, don't worry about it.
I mean, they're all depraved.
Well, you heard it here first. Anyway, now that we've gotten rid of all the nerd children and only the cool kids remain...
Yeah, fuck off, wiener kids.
The ones who don't listen to the advice of podcasters, as well you shouldn't. It's probably time to introduce that. We've mentioned Wallace and Gromit. We are covering all 5 of the Wallace and Gromit films.
This is true. We're doing 4 short films and a feature.
Yeah, well, we're covering the films. We're not covering like Wallace and Gromit's cracking inventions or any of the TV spin-offs they did. We're not doing that.
Which I've never seen, I would like to point out. And I played one of the video games once. That's as far as my extended Wallace and Gromit knowledge goes. As I played the Curse of the Were-Rabbit game, which was surprisingly really good.
I played GTA, Wallace and Gromit edition. Not a real game.
I feel like that'd just be like Untitled Goose Game.
Yeah.
I feel like it'd be very much the same thing.
It's just Gromit nicking cars and fucking bitches. Which is okay to say, because a bitch is a female dog.
Good save. Very good save there. So, for anybody who doesn't know who Wallace and Gromit are, which is criminal if you're British, personally, because they're the third most iconic British duo outside of me and Aidan and the Cock Destroyers. How could you not know who they are?
Sure.
Am I wrong?
No, that's right.
It goes Cock Destroyers, Kino, Inferno, Wallace and Gromit. That is the order.
Then Chaz and Dave.
Then Chaz and
Dave. We know we have listeners in America, so just look up Chaz and Dave, I guess. If you want to, I'd look up the Cock Destroyers, I guess. In fact, look up that entire section. That's probably easier for you. I mean, if we've got American listeners after the bit in the Getting to Know You episodes where we talked about fucking on the buses for like 2 hours, then, I think they may be on board with that brand of regional humour.
I discovered recently that we've now got listeners in Poland and Lithuania as well, so they're going to be equally as baffled
Big ups.
by our mentionings of the Cock Destroyers. We're a pro-Cock Destroyer podcast, okay?
Big up to our listeners in Lithuania and Poland. Have we got any... This is maybe in poor taste, but have we got any listeners in Ukraine, do you think?
Not according to the statistics that I've looked at.
Too busy with the war. I was just wondering if we might have kind of, developed a Churchill-like persona for the soldiers in the Ukraine, where, when it's a little bit when they're a little bit down in the dumps, they maybe switch on Kino Inferno and think, yes, glory to Ukraine, let's do this.
We'll fight them on the beaches. We'll also watch Knife Plus Heart, I guess.
Yeah, because they ain't got time to be watching movies, so they need,
They need our summations of them to get them through these troubling times. I'm going to move swiftly on from that subject before it goes down a really deeply unpleasant and offensive rabbit hole that I'm just not prepared to go into right now.
Yeah, sorry about that one.
So, yeah, Wallace and Gromit. Aidan, can you please give me a little bit of context on Wallace and Gromit, please?
So, Wallace and Gromit are two. Okay, we need to move past the fact that I just dropped Ukraine into the conversation. Sorry about that. It's been a long day, listeners.
It really has. It really has.
But also, if we do have any listeners in Ukraine, big up.
Like, big up. You guys are fighting the fucking good fight. Big up to you.
And I'm going to do a Marc style segue here. Get ready for it. And I'll tell you who else is fighting the good fight when it comes to trying to cork the endless ambition of Russian oligarchs. Aardman Animation.
Wow, that was... You got there.
It was a bold claim as well. I don't know what Aardman Animation's stance on Russia is.
I mean, I'm not going to assume it's good right now.
No. They are. Although,
what can you tell us about Aardman Animation?
We do
anyway?
know. We do know that recently, though, Aardman Animation, the owners sold the what's the word I'm looking for? They basically sold the company to the employees, so the employees now have shares.
I didn't know about this.
So we do know that they're commie scum. So make of that.
Big up the commie scum.
Make of that what you will. No,
I mean, I didn't know about that. The last I heard about Aardman, correct me if I'm wrong here, but didn't Aardman have a huge fire a couple of years ago?
Yes.
In one of their warehouses, and they lost a lot of the original models from their work, which was really quite saddening to hear.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you about Aardman Animation, Marc.
Please do.
One of the strangest intros we've ever done.
It's chaos, mate. It's what the show always is.
So Aardman Animation are mostly known for their stop-motion animation, of course. It was founded in 1972 by Peter Lord and David Sproxton, two blokes. That's what I've got on that. And initially they're...
Deeply insightful.
No, but Peter Lord and David Sproxton,
Yeah.
if you know Aardman Animation, their names come up in the credits of pretty much everything. Peter Lord especially. I'm not sure what Sproxton's doing now, but Lord has been involved in Wallace and Gromit and Chicken Run and all the rest of it from day one. So yeah, originally they kind of did stuff for TV. Specifically, it seems like they created animated sequences for a BBC series called Vision On, which I think was aimed at deaf children from the sound of it. So kind of silent comedy type stuff.
I mean, that just reminds me. Do you remember Zap from when we were kids?
Yeah, I think it's along similar lines. I've not actually watched this. I do know that they created the character Morph for this show.
Ah, yes, I remember.
And then,
Morph. We used to have some videos of Morph as a kid.
Yeah, and then so Morph for our American.
He was doing some very strange things.
Well, quite. Morph for our American listeners is a little claymation man with a round head who would appear on this program and also on Take Heart, which was kind of a precursor to Art Attack, I think.
Okay.
Or that kind of thing, anyway. Yeah, they also did stuff like, if you've ever seen the music video for Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer.
Which is amazing, and you should watch it.
Yeah, Aardman did the animation for that. Yeah, and basically, they kind of... It really is the story of, like, two guys who started this company, and everything just kind of went right for them. I mean, they eventually came into contact with a guy called Nick Park, who is probably the most relevant Aardman creative to this particular podcast, because in 1989 he was working on he released his student film A Grand Day Out, which, as we know, introduced the world to a cheese-obsessed inventor by the name of Wallace and his ever-faithful but bemused beagle Gromit.
Is Gromit a beagle? Is that what he is?
Correct.
I've never... Right, okay, because he doesn't look like one.
I mean, he looks more like a beagle than a British bulldog.
That's true, I guess. It's just when I think beagle, Gromit's not what I think. But
no,
okay.
Because presumably you think of an actual dog rather than a small plasticine model.
yeah, I guess.
But anyway, the point is this. The Grand Day Out was Nick Park's student film, animated more or less by himself from what I can tell. There are more people in the credits, I think, but I didn't bother to get too deep into that. Released in 1989, took about 7 years to complete or something like that.
Yeah, I think I read that it was 1982 is when he first started working on it.
Yeah.
and managed to get Peter Sallis. That's his name.
Yeah,
right?
Peter Sallis. Yeah,
Sallis, not Sellers, because that's somebody else.
also,
Got Peter Sallis, who was mostly known in this country because he was in Last of the Summer Wine. That's the thing he's most
amongst other things.
Yeah. We're going back to our British sitcom thing.
Yeah,
again.
for our American listeners, Last of the Summer Wine is a program about old men riding around in a bath.
And it went on for like 30 years or something.
It went on
ridiculous.
for a billion years, I think you'll find.
I think they're still making it.
I looked on Wikipedia and it says the first episode was the year 0 BC, and it has continued on from there. But basically, for our American listeners, what Last of the Summer Wine is when British comedy actors become ancient, they are put on a special set, which is a sitcom set, and the sitcom is Last of the Summer Wine.
It's like, have you seen those like dementia villages that old people live in? It's that, but for British comedy actors.
It's that, but they broadcast it on a Sunday afternoon.
It's like Big Brother, but even more sinister than that.
I mean, I think that's about right for Last of the Summer Wine. I think every episode involves them going down a hill in a bath.
From the episodes I've seen, yes.
I've certainly never seen an episode that didn't feature that. Which either means I've only seen one episode repeated every time I've happened across Last of the Summer Wine, or it's regularly featured. Hard to say.
So, yeah, Peter Sallis voiced Wallace in A Grand Day Out, and apparently Nick Park paid him £50 for the job, which I imagine back then was a lot more money than what it sounds like now. And supposedly the film took so long to complete that when Nick Park eventually completed it and rang him to say it's completed, apparently Peter Sallis very uncharacteristically swore at Nick Park.
He went, "Cunt!"
Brian Blessed style, full belly.
He went, "You fucking cunt, Nick." No, he didn't say that.
Could you imagine if instead of cheese grommet, it was just cant grommet?
Cunt grommet. I want some
With a little hand
cunt.
movement.
Well, he does want some. This is something we'll get into.
Wallace is a hound, mate. Considering he's in a gay relationship with Gromit, he is poon crazy.
I can't believe I just said Wallace wants some on a podcast that my mum's going to listen to. That's, I mean, it's not the worst thing I've ever said, but it's possibly one of the most.
It's pretty up there, isn't it?
It's
like,
pretty
it's
graphic.
Pretty
It's not on, really, is it? It's not. It's not cricket.
It's just not cricket.
It's simply not cricket. Cricket, for our American listeners, is a bit like baseball, but more boring.
It's so boring, isn't it? Like, I don't get people that are mad into cricket.
No, I do. Let me tell you what, because I've been to a live test match. Let me tell you why they're into it, Mark. Because when people go to cricket, they get slaughtered. They just get
I'm aware.
Next level pissed. Like, if you think football fans get drunk, what I've learned from going to a cricket match is cricket fans can just hold their alcohol better. Because everyone, like, you never see a cricket riot break out, but everyone's
too fucked.
Yeah, everyone in a cricket match is drinking like they want to die. Like, it's another...
Well, yeah, they're watching cricket.
It's another fucking level. I mean, I can only imagine what it's like if you're watching England play fucking Australia. That must be
my God.
one of the drunkest fucking matches you've ever seen. Because the players are all pissed as well. That's the other thing.
Well, yeah. Like, again, it's cricket. Like, nobody enjoys cricket unless they're fucking pissed out their skulls.
Frankly, I think like the cricket, like the team managers for cricket must be like taking fags out of their hands before they go on to play.
And for our American listeners, fags are cigarettes.
Yeah, it's not just some little twink they're all sucking off before they start playing. Get that out of your mouth.
Put him down. He don't know where he's been.
Brings a whole new meaning to the term ball boy.
Ooh.
Oh, no.
Right. We should probably talk about A Grand Day Out more, because it's just...
Because we've not talked about
We're never going to get round to it.
We've not talked about it at all yet?
Not really,
and we're
no.
15
We've
minutes
given
in?
the preamble.
Yeah.
It's the preamble, and we've talked about cricket players sucking off twink boys, but not the actual film itself. So please, let's just talk about the movie.
I hope Nick Park hears this.
I hope the cock destroyers hear this.
Oh, God. Anyway, listen. So, yeah, well, do you know what, Mark? Why don't you tell us what the plot of A Grand Day Out is? 1989's A Grand Day Out.
Okay, so I watched this. So I'm actually going to just say this now as well. I watched all 5 of these films last night, sequentially, in chronological order, because I forgot we were recording tonight.
Yeah.
So I did the binge of all binges on Wallace and Gromit.
I crammed them over 2 days. But
I did it one go, bareback, straight in there.
Mark thought we were recording on Thursday, but we weren't. It was Tuesday.
I did. Yeah, because you keep receipts, which you like to remind me of.
Look. The true fact of before we get into it, the true fact of the matter is this, right? If I ever make plans with any of my friends now, and I'm revealing something about myself that some of them don't know yet, I screenshot it for the exact reason that when the inevitable situation arises, which happens too often with the people I hang out with, where I'm like, what's the plan for tomorrow? What time are we meeting up? And they inevitably go, oh, fucking hell, I thought it was on Friday or whatever. I can just show them. I can just fucking show them agreeing to it.
And that's literally what he did to me last night.
Yeah, so I'm not a control freak or anything. It's just,
No, not at all. Not at all. You just like to hold people accountable.
Yeah. I like them to know that they've wasted my time.
And so, yeah, when you sent me that screenshot, you literally did send me a screenshot. And I was like, fuck. And I was like, wait a minute. 4 short movies and a feature length that still somehow come to less than 3.5 hours.
Yes.
Easily doable. So I did it. I mainlined these.
I mean, this is 5 entries, but it's like 5 hours less time than the fucking Scream saga was, so...
Yeah, like... Absolutely. Although this has some similarities to the Scream saga in the sense that these are basically the same movie 5 times over. They're very
more or
similar.
less. More or less.
Yeah, they follow very similar beats, I think. Because by the time I got to the last one, I was like, how many times do I have to see Wallace getting fucking dressed up in the morning by his machines? Every fucking time.
Well, anyway, that's a staple.
Apart from Grand Day Out, actually.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken.
No.
They're all kind of blurred into one.
I don't think so. No.
So, yeah, A Grand Day Out is the first of the Wallace and Gromit films, and it's all about how Wallace and Gromit just sat around one evening, and they've ran out of cheese. It's a situation we've all found ourselves in where we just don't have any cheese.
And specifically, they say it's a bank holiday at the start, so they cannot get.
It is a bank holiday,
shop.
And when this was made, bank holidays actually meant that places were shut.
Yeah, not anymore.
Fuck it, tell me about it.
Yeah.
So they're obviously in a dilemma where they just don't have any cheese. So Wallace is like, well, where can we get cheese? Gromit is his usual silent self because he knows that Wallace is abusing him and he can't speak up or anything, and it's a bank holiday, so nobody can help him.
And he's a dog, so he can't talk.
That's also true, but he can cry, which is very upsetting.
It's true. He can cry.
And that happens a fair few times throughout these movies.
Yeah, because Gromit... Because okay, we'll get into it, but Gromit always has a hard time.
He does. Why does he stay, Aidan? Why does Gromit stay?
Because the dick be good.
The dick must be good. Wallace's dick must be fucking top shelf for Gromit.
I'll tell you what as well. Dogs fucking love cheese, so maybe it's just that. Maybe he's hooked on cheese.
It might be that. But yeah, so Wallace's plan is, let's go where there's lots of cheese. So they go to the moon.
Which is, as we all know, is made of cheese.
It's apparently made of cheese. So Wallace, being this mad inventor, which is never fully explained.
Doesn't need to be. He's an inventor. Why do you need a backstory to everything, Marc?
I mean, I would like to know why this little strange Yorkshire man can build rockets. I'd just like to know why.
He just can, bitch. Deal with it.
He just can. I will. There you go. My disbelief is suspended. So there we go. It is suspended. Wait, this is also made in plasticine.
Yeah.
So
he's a man made of plasticine.
Maybe I shouldn't take things so literally.
No, it didn't really happen.
So they build a rocket and go to the moon, and they go to the moon, and Wallace is very quick to just chip bits off the floor and start eating it, because that's just something that happens.
Yeah.
And then they stumble across this robot, which is an oven, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's like a stove. Yeah.
A stove that is coin operated, and then upon Wallace putting a coin inside it, it comes to life and
has arms.
Again, this is where it started to blur for me. It wants to go skiing.
Yeah, because when they go out, so when Wallace and Gromit go on their picnic, so initially the robot's only concern is protecting the sanctity of the moon. All right. He doesn't
from these cheese-eating maniacs.
Yeah, frankly, this is a story about colonialism and the evils of colonialism. Because all Wallace wants to do is take.
That's very true.
and the indigenous stove folk of the moon do not take kindly to this. Anyway, yeah, so it's because he sees the magazine, right? Because Wallace has a magazine that he has with him for his picnic, and then the robot sees the magazine, right? And it sees skiing and that.
Is that the Cheese Holidays magazine?
Yeah,
that might be my favourite joke in the entire series.
Yeah, and then he's reading it and he's like, oh, I could have a go at skiing. He wants to change his situation, Mark.
Yeah, he wants to go skiing. And
why don't you want to let
decides...
him change his situation, Mark?
I support the stove people going skiing, okay? I don't see why that's a problem.
I don't support it.
Why do you?
I don't support it.
You don't support it? Well, that's because you're against aliens,
There
remember?
you go. But
and I guess the stove people count.
But then I am pro-robot, so this movie kind of fucks me up.
Well, I mean, so aside from giving Aidan an ethical dilemma, this movie is... I'm not going to lie, a little bit creepy. I think it might just be because it's the animation is quite rudimentary. And I don't know, certain stop motion really kind of creeps me out. This one in particular, I thought was kind of creepy. Yeah,
it does kind of fall into that uncanny valley a little bit a few times, where it's not quite fluid enough.
Yeah, and especially because like one thing that the Wallace and Gromit movies do, especially the older short ones, is they do try to like parody like actual films, and like especially The Wrong Trousers, which is obviously the one we'll talk about next, where it kind of leans into those sort of like film noirish and thriller type things. Yeah. So whenever this movie tries to evoke that kind of atmosphere, it's doubly creepy.
Yeah, and this movie, I do think this movie is an interesting one to watch. It was always kind of of the three that were in regular rotation when I was a kid. So there's this one, Wrong Trousers, and Close Shave. This one was probably always kind of my least favourite. I think partially because of the slightly janky animation. But I also think watching it again last night, I was a bit like... The thing that's kind of interesting about this movie is it is very removed from the rest of them in terms of content. Like, it's very like high on the whimsy, and it's very kind of like, oh, they're on a little adventure to the cheesy moon and all this kind of stuff. Whereas the rest of them, as you say, Mark, they kind of lean into, like, all of the rest of them are kind of parodies of like Hitchcockian thrillers, weirdly. Like, that kind of becomes the thing that Wallace and Gromit is. I guess because of the Were Rabbit kind of has like the Hammer horror element.
It's like Hammer horror kind of veers into there, yeah.
But like The Wrong Trousers has like, it actually lifts shots from Hitchcock at points, but like...
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, this one kind of... It's an odd one. And it's kind of mostly, I think, kind of interesting in the sense that it introduces Wallace and Gromit, and those characters kind of stay the same as time goes on. Not that Gromit necessarily has an awful lot of character. He's just kind of a dependable dog, you know.
And very much put upon by Wallace.
Yeah, and they kind of established that dynamic early on with this one. And like, it's interesting in that regard. Like, I think what is interesting is like the fact that it is Peter Sallis from day one, and they just somehow managed to swing that. Obviously, the now sadly departed Peter Sallis.
Yes, very sad to hear.
Yeah, I think what strikes me is how kind of complete they seem as a comedic duo in this. Like, Nick Park clearly had a very cohesive like vision for what the characters would be, even if in this film, in this short, he hadn't quite figured out like what the ideal comedy scenarios to put them in would be. And that's sorry, go on.
I mean, I think that this one very much kind of feels like a proof of concept, because that's kind of what it is.
Yeah.
Like, this was Nick Park's student film, and it's the first iteration of these characters. So it is very much just a little, like you say, a very kind of whimsical side story where they just go to the moon and then they come back, and it's very inconsequential, essentially.
And it's kind of like the focus is very much on like Wallace likes cheese, which is obviously kind of an aspect of his character, but like the movie kind of feels a bit studenty and like kind of not exactly lol random, but there's definitely that element of like...
Well, the stove people is definitely a very random aspect to this. That you know, like Wallace being a crazed inventor is one thing, but why are there stove people on the moon? Like, it's very, very disjointed, I think. But I do like this one. I think it's...
Oh yeah, it's still great, yeah.
It's really, really enjoyable. It's quite funny as well. The humour in this one really quite surprised me, considering when it was made. Because again, like the Cheese Holidays magazine gag and stuff. Like it feels. I mean, it's obviously lifting quite a lot from stuff like Monty Python, I would say.
Yeah,
Which is a very clear inspiration on these films, I would say.
And it's kind of the classic comedic duo with Wallace being the kind of silly one and Gromit being the straight man.
I think for me, the main thing that stands out is just how impressive it is, considering it started its life out as a student film. Like, the animation is, for student standards, is fantastic. Like, it really is.
And considering it's stop motion,
despite the flaws.
Anyone who's tried to do stop motion in the past knows it's a fucking bollock. I've never done it directly myself, but I have.
Yeah. When I was in college, the entire class I was in, obviously studying film, the entire class were given a stop motion project to do. So it was, even though there was like 22 of us or something like that working on one project, it still took us an entire term to make. And I have the utmost respect for anybody that wants to work in stop motion, because I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the thing, is it's a bit of a dying art form at the moment, unfortunately. You don't see an awful lot of stop motion. I think there is kind of this received wisdom from animation producers that people don't want, traditional 2D animation or traditional stop motion. They only want, the very Disneyfied CGI animation. I think that's kind of bullshit. I think
it's bullshit as well.
I think
there are still stop motion movies being made. Yeah. I mean, I can't think what the company is, but the guys that did Box Trolls and Kubo and the Two Strings.
Leica.
That's it, yeah. They're still sort of keeping the art form alive. Yeah. And obviously, Wes Anderson has done fantastic stuff.
But that's it. It's kind of
Isle of Dogs.
It's kind of, and those are both excellent films. But it's kind of been sort of renovated to, kind of artisanal. Sort
of the fringes. I guess.
Kind of artisanal directors. Because even though Leica, they do make family movies essentially, they're not like household names at this point. Even though some of their films are, like Coraline and stuff like that.
No, they have very bold aesthetic choices, considering they're working within stop motion as well. Like they really kind of go out of their way to be unique and visually distinct.
And I like Leica a lot. I try to support them. What was their most recent film? Missing Link. I saw that.
I haven't seen that, actually.
Yeah, it was okay. It wasn't as good as their best ones, I don't think. But it was fun. And also, the thing that you always get with Leica, similar to Aardman, is like, there's always the impressive animation, the impressive visuals, have a distinct aesthetic of their own. As do Aardman, although Aardman kind of leans more towards broad comedy, I suppose, whereas Leica...
Yeah, well, the thing with Aardman as well is, like, it's very intrinsically British humour.
Yes. And I think that's something that, just circling back to Grand Day Out specifically, is definitely an element of Grand Day Out. Like, the humour feels very... In a way that's hard to define, very British.
I mean, the whole thing, like the whole Wallace and Gromit thing, is very British. Like the town where it's... Do they ever specify where Wallace and Gromit?
I know they live on Wallaby Way, right? West Wallaby Way.
Yeah, because he says that in Grand Day Out, doesn't he? But it's got that very old, antiquated British village come town feel to it, which, like I mentioned earlier, Untitled Goose Game, is, if you've played that, if you haven't, you should.
I'm aware of it.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, it's set in basically the Wallace and Gromit town. And it has that very old-fashioned, quaint British style to it.
Yeah, so according to the internet, they live on 62 West Wallaby Street in an unspecified northern town. So.
Well, I mean, Wallace has a Yorkshire accent, doesn't he? So,
he does. He does also say...
he's around there.
Yes. I should also say, in Curse of the Were-Rabbit, they have an A to Z of Wigan. So... and that's on the in the antipesto truck, so up north for our American listeners,
where it is grim.
It is indeed grim up north.
It is very grim up north. No, I like the north. It's somewhat grim.
It's also shit.
But Grand Day Out.
It's also shit down south. Anyway,
yeah,
a Grand Day Out. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't have too much to say about this movie, especially compared to the other ones. I think it does a really good...
Yeah, I'm very much with you on that.
I think it does a really good job of, like, it sets up what the characters will be going forwards. It's obviously a little more basic, a little more rudimentary. You can really see the fingerprints and the clay in this one,
Yeah.
which I think lends it a certain charm. But it's definitely something that gets smoother and smoother as time goes on.
Absolutely. I mean, I mentioned this to you off mic, but before doing this, I managed to buy the collection of the short movies on Blu-ray. And I don't know to what extent they've been remastered and such for Blu-ray, but watching it on my TV, I was like, you can really see full-on fingerprints in like Gromit and stuff, especially on Gromit. He's the one where they show the most, I think. But yeah, I think you're right. It just adds such a human charm to it. It feels very rough and ready when they do smooth it out a bit in the later ones, but there's still points where it's very noticeable.
Yeah, and you wouldn't want them to completely smooth it out, but yeah, I think, yeah. I don't know. This movie, I think, is kind of obviously gone down as a classic, but I think it is kind of that thing of it's a little bit of a Steamboat Willie. It's more interesting in terms of what it would go on to spawn rather than for the thing itself. Although the thing itself is very entertaining. Like, I can't deny it. It's very funny.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I enjoyed watching this one, but because like. I've said this to you previously as well. Like, I didn't massively grow up with Wallace and Gromit. I saw them as a kid, but they weren't like a staple of like my childhood viewing. So I didn't remember much of A Grand Day Out, but I still enjoyed it. But watching it, I was very much more looking forward to the other Wallace and Gromit stories.
Yeah.
Because this one is fun, but it doesn't have the same impact as what the other ones do.
No.
I would watch it again, but it's not my go-to.
It's not as tightly plotted really either, because the plot is kind of just as you say. They build a rocket, they go to the moon, they eat some cheese, a robot chases them, but then the robot wants to ski, and then he does ski, and that's kind of the end of the movie.
He does ski at the end.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, it's certainly, it's fun to watch, but I think the other ones kind of are more plot-based than this is, for what they are, Yeah, obviously, we're talking about...
the other ones also have a lot more there's more like set pieces, and they're a lot more dynamic as well. This one, there's a lot of extended sequences in this one of Wallace and Gromit just sitting around.
Yeah, true. I mean, there's sequences that are quite memorable, like the kind of montage of them building the rocket itself.
Yeah, which has got some really great, like, impressive bits of animation, like where Wallace is soaring. And as the saw blade retracts, Gromit is hitting a nail in that's going in front of, which is hard to explain on a podcast, but you know exactly what I mean.
Yeah, and there's fun gags like when he's sawing the door and he saws through one of the supports and it falls over, and he calls Gromit in, and then Gromit has to just stand there whilst he saws the rest of it. That's quite fun.
Which is a perfect encapsulation of their entire dynamic because it is abusive.
No, it's a dog. It's
abusive, Aidan. Why do we show these things to kids?
Yeah, I think this is what I mean. There's kind of like the blueprint of it, because obviously in the later ones, you always have these like Rube Goldberg machines that kind of run the house and stuff, which you don't have in this one. But you're kind of seeing that beginning of like, you can see how this led into the later ones, because they go, oh well, Wallace is an inventor. He built this rocket ship. But I don't necessarily think Wallace was an inventor in this one. I think it's more just he wanted some cheese. And
his insane lust for cheese, his addiction to cheese, fuels his insanity.
Yeah. Because
Wallace is a crackhead, apparently.
Yeah, and cheese is a metaphor for crack in these movies. Yes. There's also some classic stuff where they forget the crackers, for example.
They do, yeah, and it's very slapstick again. Like, I think the word you used earlier is perfect. It's very whimsical.
Yeah,
it's got a lot of flights of fancy in it and stuff, and it's just a really good little watch. It's very entertaining. But if I'm gonna choose to watch a Wallace and Gromit short, this one will not be the one I go to immediately.
Unless I was deliberately watching all of them, I guess. Then.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I just there's some fun touches in this. Like, I like when the inside of the rocket is an exact replica of their living room. That's always something that kind of tickles me. But yeah, I think this is a good start to the thing. You can certainly see, as I say, what the franchise, the epic saga, would become. Obviously, it's impressive on the basis that like this really is the passion project of Nick Park. I mean, I know there's a few different names in the credits, but really this is like he started this as a student, so this is he slaved away to get this done.
And yeah, the effort and the love just really kind of shows. I think
Yeah.
it just shines through. Like it's such a charming little film.
Yeah, and I think as people who kind of have dabbled in filmmaking ourselves, like there's always something about these projects that take a long time, that someone just stuck at it and got it made, that will always kind of make them a little bit, even if they're shit, which this isn't. Even if
No, this is far from that. Like,
even if they're
you'd
shit,
be so proud if you made this, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but there's something about that, isn't there? About like you slaved and slaved and slaved, and then the thing finally exists. Anyway, we should give this a rating. So we're going to use our standard rating for Aidan and Marc versus. Is it cheese-tacular, crackers, Gromit, or Wallace? No, it's good.
What do those mean?
I don't know. I don't know, Mark. Okay, so what is it? Is good but I hate it, good, shit, or shit but I love it? Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. There's no use prevaricating about the bush, as Wallace might say. It's good.
A grand day out is a grand time. There you go. That's my bullshit way of saying it.
Put it on the box. Put that on the box. Imagine
a good time was had.
Imagine if they quoted this podcast on the next, like, if they re-released it in 4K and they quoted Kino Inferno on the box. That would be, you know what, Nick Park, if you're listening to this, do that.
So moving on, we have the next Wallace and Gromit movie, which is The Wrong Trousers.
Wrong trousers, more like right bloody trousers. Put that on the box.
There you go. I'll sort of front load this one by saying that this is absolutely my favourite one.
Yeah, I think this is kind of unanimously considered the best one among Aardman aficionados. And I can see why. It's certainly, I think when I think of like Wallace and Gromit gags, it's probably mostly from this one that I would think of them.
I think, yeah, with this one, whenever I think Wallace and Gromit, this is definitely the one that springs to my mind purely for one reason and one reason only, and that's because it has my favourite character in the entire lot of the movies, and you can definitely guess who that is.
Gromit.
Yes.
No, I assume you're speaking of the feathery little bastard himself, Feathers Mcgraw.
I love Feathers Mcgraw. I think he's so just to look at. He's funny. Like, he just looks funny. I like the little slappy noise his feet makes when he walks. His beady little eyes. Like, I just think he's hilarious, and also genuinely intimidating.
I think Feathers Mcgraw is easily the best Wallace and Gromit villain, and they've got quite a rogues gallery over the course of the movies. But
yeah, people really fucking hate Wallace and Gromit.
They just want to fucking kill them at every opportunity. But I think
homophobic, mate. That's what it is.
I think Feathers Mcgraw definitely, he's definitely a shoo-in for the best villain. And we should explain what The Wrong Trousers is for people who haven't seen it. So
it's basically single white female, but Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah, but with a penguin.
For our American listeners, single white. No.
They know single white female. I hope they do.
I don't think many of our listeners know single white female. Anyway.
So The Wrong Trousers. The plot is essentially this. We open on Gromit's birthday, which he suspects that Wallace has forgotten about. But no, Wallace has brought him a lovely new leaden collar, which Gromit is not appreciative of. However, he's also bought him, presumably because Wallace is just a lazy cunt, he's also built him a pair of robot legs, or trousers in this case, because Wallace, for our American listeners, trousers are pants. And for our British listeners, pants are trousers, not underpants.
And also boxers, but that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, well, don't worry about that. The Wrong Trousers. So yeah, they're robot trousers. They're mech trousers, which can walk Gromit independently of Wallace, but Wallace can also wear. So that's the whole situation.
Yeah, not entirely sure what the design choices behind that were. Wallace, were you drinking?
Well, we know that he has a major crack problem.
And yeah, he's also shown to enjoy a nice spot of Bordeaux in this one as well.
Yes, he is. He very much is, which is a hilarious shot. Anyway, because of Wallace's rampant spending on both inventions and presumably cheese, money's a bit short for our heroes, so they have to get a lodger in. Unfortunately for them, the lodger who shows up is one Feathers Mcgraw, a penguin who is also a diamond thief and
who disguises himself
as
as
a chicken.
By wearing a rubber glove on his head.
By placing a rubber glove on his head. Now, I don't want to cast aspersions on Wallace or the community at large in Wigan or wherever they are, but I think I could tell the difference between a penguin with a glove on its head and a fucking chicken. That's all I'm saying. I don't know what's going on there. But,
That's my favourite gag in this is the wanted poster of "Have you seen this chicken?"
Yes.
It's blatantly a penguin with a fucking glove on its head.
Yeah, then later on when he reveals himself to Wallace, he pulls the glove off his head and Wallace goes, "You!"
That's so stupid.
Of course,
I love it so
of course,
much.
Gromit sees straight through it. He sees the wanted poster and he's like, "That's the fucking penguin that's just moved in." But yeah, this movie I think is just excellent. Like, I would find it hard to not agree that this is the best one, to be honest, because there's so much great stuff in this. The trousers themselves, there's a lot of comedy business with them. Obviously, Feathers Mcgraw is just a hilarious invention. A penguin that never speaks. Much like, that's the thing, none of the animals ever talk in this. But Feathers Mcgraw has such a personality, and the fact that, yeah, he's single white female as Gromit, moves into Gromit's room rather than the allotted tenant's room, and slowly starts to drive him mad, essentially, as a campaign of madness. He's playing music, jazz records into the night, whilst also just not being in the house, just wandering around, forcing Gromit onto the couch and then into the hutch outside. Yes, and we also get the hilarious scene of Gromit watching from his kennel outside as the silhouette of Wallace and Feathers Mcgraw are enjoying a nice Bordeaux. It's just hilarious.
It's so weird.
It's so funny. I mean, because this is the thing. I think the thing that makes the Wrong Trousers special is this is the one where they solidify what the Wallace and Gromit formula really is, and it is this kind of like cod Hitchcockian suspense thriller, where like there is this weird tone to this movie. I mean, we've mentioned Single White Female, which is not Hitchcock, obviously, but like that's obviously a reference point for this. But there's a very it's a very Hitchcockian premise, right? Like somebody moves into your house and they've secretly got an evil agenda. Turns out they're this wanted criminal, blah, 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 right? But they make it so funny by just grounding it in very British, very northern humour, and also the assailant is a mute penguin. Like that, it's just so funny. Like I genuinely think Feathers Mcgraw is one of the most brilliant comedic creations of all time.
He's just so brilliant. Again, it's everything. Like I said, the little slappy noise his feet makes just is so great to me. Like it makes me laugh every time, especially in that great scene where Gromit follows him into town.
Yes.
And again, it's done just like a Hitchcock movie. It's really quite suspenseful.
Well, there's
lots of really great lighting, and
there's a direct lift from Psycho, right, where where he hides in the dog food box, but he cuts the little eye holes out.
Yeah.
And it's the exact shot from Psycho that they also ripped off for Pulp Fiction, where Janet Leigh sees her boss crossing the street from her windscreen. Like they do that gag, but it's Gromit looking out from a little an empty cardboard box of dog food, but his eyes are where this cartoon dog's eyes are. It's great. It's amazing. Like there's no way around it. I will say as well, I think the animation in this is so good. It's such a step up from
it's such a step up. Yeah,
I mean, because this is one where we're introduced to Wallace's breakfast making / suit putting on machines. She has these Rube Goldberg machines that run his house. Obviously, the bed tips out and he falls down the chute into the dining room.
I don't understand how his shirt and jumper combo works, because it puts his arms on first and then the rest, which is very confusing to me.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. Cause,
like they do it in every subsequent film, and I've just never understood it.
Yeah, I've got no answers for that one. That one baffled me as a kid, and it baffles me to this day. I think you just got to accept.
But it looks cool.
It looks great.
We'll just go with that.
Yes, and obviously we have the wrong trousers themselves. This bizarre contraption. I also think there's some incredible sequences in this. Like obviously there's the diamond heist itself when Feathers McGraw has finally ousted Gromit, and he puts a sleeping Wallace into the wrong trousers. But he's also using this helmet that Wallace has that has a little grabby claw that comes out of it.
What's that used for?
For robbing. But it's an incredible sequence, like this almost kind of Mission Impossible-esque thing where he's got Wallace kind of walking up the walls and then down the walls into this establishment, wherever it is, where they're trying to steal...
It's a museum.
Yeah. Where they're trying to steal this diamond that's in a case, and it's just so good. Like Wallace is asleep, and he's remote controlling the trousers. I
also really love the sequence prior where Feathers McGraw is goes to the museum during the day when Gromit follows him, and he gets the tape measure out and uses the tape measure like a grappling hook.
Yeah. That's as a kid, whenever I had to use a tape measure, that was all I would think of. There's Feathers McGraw grappling up with the tape measure, and then grappling back down again as well. Yeah, it's so funny.
It's fantastic. It's really, really great.
I also, one of my favourite gags with Feathers McGraw is when Gromit comes back to save the day, and he's kind of got the rolling pin ready to twat him one, and Feathers McGraw just pulls a revolver from nowhere.
That honestly killed me.
It's so good. He's just
he full on tries to murder Gromit.
Yeah,
let's not beat around the bush.
This is the start of every Wallace and Gromit film having a character that is straight up trying to fucking murder them. Like, this happens in every subsequent Wallace and Gromit feature.
Because the big set piece of this one, aside from the diamond heist, is the final scene where they're racing around Wallace and Gromit's house on the toy trains, which is brilliant, and it's amazingly animated, and it's got the timeless gag where the track runs out, so Gromit is constantly putting down new track.
Yeah.
But during that sequence, Gromit has a chamber pot style thing on his head, and fair play to Feathers, he's got fairly good aim, because if that chamber pot wasn't there, he would have headshotted Gromit immediately and just completely fucking murked him.
And the fact that culminates in Gromit falling off the toy train and into the kitchen, grabbing the milk bottle, and then Feathers McGraw also falling off and landing perfectly into the milk bottle is just incredible stuff. It's so good.
But that whole train sequence is great, and it looks amazing even now, and it's technically so impressive.
It's just that simple. It's that simple thing that Aardman and Nick Park, in particular, are so good at. That thing of taking a very, very basic idea of okay, what if we parodied a sort of your typical train top action chase sequence? What if we did that with regular sized characters, but on a toy train? And then exploiting that for every single gag you can do with that. They don't just leave it at the one gag. They, as you say, there's the classic bit of, the track running out and then Wallace and Gromit having to put down the track as the train's still running. But there's also 5 other gags in that sequence, and it's so rapidly delivered. And this is just kind of what I think is so impressive about all these movies, especially as they go along. It's just how much comedy they can mine out of every sequence. And I think The Wrong Trousers is kind of the start of that. Because I think Grand Day Out is it's kind of amusing, it's kind of a soft, whimsical watch. Whereas I think this is this is Wallace and Gromit kind of in its fullest form, I suppose. Where
I think it completely solidifies the tone as well, because it hadn't really kind of occurred to me, there's a real underlying darkness to Wallace and Gromit that I never quite usually think of when I think about it. But watching it again, I was like, Feathers McGraw is a full-on villain. He will shoot people.
Yeah.
Just to steal diamonds. And I just love this movie so much. I actually just want to go and watch it again, because when I rewatched it yesterday, I just was... It'd been maybe 15, possibly more years since I'd last seen it, and it was almost as good as watching it for the first time again. I had such a good time with it.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't watch any of the rest of it, if you've never seen these before, watch The Wrong Trousers, definitely. Because it's so funny.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're all great. You should watch them all, but yeah.
Yeah, you really should. I mean, I now really want a little figurine of Feathers McGraw for my desk. I really just want a little Feathers McGraw.
Yeah, what a great...
Because I love him.
What a great character.
Yeah, then eventually at the end when they defeat him by trapping him in a milk bottle, which is just a fucking brilliant visual gag.
Yeah.
They take him to the zoo.
Yes. Yeah, and you have the shot of him shaking the bars at the end. Yeah.
My other favourite shot of him is when he's doing the diamond heist and he's about to trip the lasers. There's very obvious lasers that they have in the museum, by the way. And it's just that shot where he just starts sweating because it just looks so bizarre.
Yeah. He wipes it with the flipper,
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of when he first moves into their house and he just walks straight past the room that's designated for the tenant and into Gromit's room. And he just jumps on the bed and you see his little feet just kicking it. It's so funny.
And he starts unpacking.
Yeah.
He's just great. Like he's such a fully formed character from like the first time you see him. Like everything about that character.
And again, it's like Gromit. Like they don't have to make these characters talk or let you in on the inner thoughts because they're so expressive in how they're animated. Because if you think about it, this movie, I mean, it's kind of the last one that does this, but this movie kind of has the thing that Grand Day Out has, where there's only really one voice actor, and that's Peter Sellers, and the rest of them are mute characters essentially.
Yeah, and that's something I'd like to talk about as we go into the next few, because I think that might be where, even though I do like all of these movies, there's a bit of a spoiler there, but I feel like it's impossible to not like all of these movies.
Yeah.
I do think that's where my love for it is a little lessened, in the sense that like I prefer it when there's not as many speaking roles, when it is Wallace Gromit, and I think because Feathers Mcgraw doesn't have any dialogue, and he's the best villain in the whole thing.
Yeah, I can kind of see where you're coming from, because I think what this movie has is, you have Peter Sellers' performance as Wallace kind of tiding you over in terms of having human dialogue and having the kind of the verbal gags, but then the rest of it is done with the visuals and how fluid they can make the animation and like
because even the stuff that is more dialogue heavy is still great and still really funny. But I guess it's very much personal preference, really, isn't it? Like I think I prefer it when the gags are more visual and more sight gag based and more atmospheric, I guess, because like the scenes where Feathers Mcgraw first walks in and just sort of stares at Gromit, it's so sinister. Like it's genuinely there's like a genuine
I agree.
tension
I know what you mean. Some of it is a little bit lost in later films when it does become more dialogue heavy and there is a slightly larger cast. I mean, I think they make up for it by having different kinds of jokes. Yeah, I know what you mean. This one kind of feels like it has a more kind of pure distillation of like the animated humor.
For me, this is what I think of when I think of Wallace and Gromit. I think of these kind of jokes. I think of non-verbal storytelling. And I think of like really big set pieces, and I think even though like the later movies do have like bigger set pieces, I just prefer the ones in this movie. I think the train track sequence is great. I love Gromit stalking Feathers. I love Feathers' his little fucking grappling hook routine. I love him breaking into the museum. I love him being trapped in the zoo. Like it's every sort of detail of that character works.
I also think this is a good example of, and this is something we can get into with later installments as well, something that all of these movies have really is they have a lot of like reference humor, but it's always done in a way that isn't shit. And what I mean by that is you and I have argued about the film Shrek in the past. One of the things that I don't like about those movies in general, whilst I will allow for the fact they're very popular, is the fact that like I hate the reference humor in those movies, because it is just, here's a scene from another movie, you get it? Hey, Dad's in the audience, you've seen The Matrix, and I kind of don't love that.
I get what you mean, because when you say references in this, the first one that my brain went to, and I remember being the only one in the room that got the references in A Grand Day Out. When you first go into Wallace's basement, there is a sled with Rosebud written on it.
And there's just little things like that, little background details, or in this, they kind of, it's not a parody of any one specific film, but there's a little bit of single white female, there's a little bit of Rear Window in the scene of Wallace kind of looking up at the two of them silhouetted. There's a little bit of Psycho in the one shot, and like there's little bits and bobs of stuff. And obviously, the train sequence is a parody of like the train top chase, right? It's kind of taking that and making it sort of low stakes and silly. And I think that's what works about it. Is like as a kid, I found all those scenes funny, or emotive, or whatever the scene was going for. I didn't need to know that they were references to other movies. Because I think what you get...
It's because they work regardless of context. Like that's the
thing.
thing.
Exactly. And it's like but now I'm older and I kind of have the reference and I get more of the texture of the joke. It works more, not less. Whereas I think that's kind of the problem with a lot of American stuff. I'm using Shrek as an example, but there's a lot of American animated comedy that kind of does the same thing, where like it's just a reference to be like, hey, there's a reference to a movie. That's like a joke, right? And it's kind of, I don't know, man. Like there's that thing of, I think this does it right, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think it's in this instance, it's less of an outright reference, as more of like evoking the feeling or the mood and tone of these films. Like, because there isn't anything that's 100% this is a parody. It's just more evocative of that stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
It's also just really skillfully directed throughout. That's the main thing. And that's something that I guess around this time you probably didn't really see as much in stop motion, is just like it's directed as if it's an actual film.
Yeah,
especially.
I mean, again, that's part of the comedy as well, right?
Yeah, especially the cinematography in this as well is a lot more advanced than what you got in A Grand Day Out, because the sequence where Feathers is piloting Wallace to steal the diamond, there's a really great like tracking shot that follows Wallace as he's walking across the ceiling, and it's like a really multi-layered shot where you've got like displays in the foreground and the background, and like the way it all just kind of like seamlessly like moves. It's just so great. Like, yeah, I loved it. Also, like the little in the display, there's all the penguins in like the Neanderthal pose. That's just really cute. I like that. Yeah. I just like the design of penguins in this universe. I don't know what it is. They just look really funny.
Yeah. Okay. So what are we giving this? The rating system of cheese.
It's cheese-tastic, Gromit. There you go.
Penguinerific. No, it's good, right? It's just good. Like,
it's more than good. It's pure, unadulterated Kino.
Yeah, I mean, if we were using the Kino or Inferno system, this would definitely be Kino. I think this is the one that I would preserve if you had to destroy the rest of them for some reason. If the Nazis took over and they were like, listen, the one thing we want from you is we're destroying films, but we can keep one of every franchise. Don't ask me why. The Nazis, they're evil. So...
this is the Scream 2 of the Wallace and Gromit canon.
Yeah, this is the one that I preserve in that situation. Where the Nazis are burning films. We probably shouldn't say the Nazis are burning films, because the premise of our podcast is, are we going to say it's Kino or are we going to throw it in a big fire?
It's taken us this long to out ourselves, Aidan. There's no going back now.
Sorry about that, everyone. We are an alt-right podcast.
Disclaimer, no, we are not.
Disclaimer, just to be clear, if there are any alt-right people listening, we don't like you.
For our American listeners, that was sarcasm.
They didn't know that it was sarcasm because we didn't go, really, at the
end. Am I right?
Our one American listener is no longer a listener. Well done, Mark, we did.
Hey, 6% of our listeners are American, or at least were until we just decided to bash them like that.
They like it. They like it when we treat them mean. This is the thing. That's true. This is why they don't like James Corden, because he's too nice. Or he's too superficially nice. They like British people to be a bit cunty. That's why they like Simon Cowell.
Yeah, and it's weird because they love James Corden, who's an actual cunt.
Yeah, but he's the cunt. He's like a sociopath. He tries.
That's true.
He tries to blend in.
It's like if Patrick Bateman just really liked Greg's.
Sorry, disclaimer. That was a good joke, Mark. But disclaimer. Allegedly, James Corden is a psychopath. We're not saying that for definite. Just in case Corden's lawyers are listening.
And just like how that was a close shave with James Corden's lawyers, we move on to Wallace and Gromit in A Close Shave.
I hope you're going to edit in the fart sounds after Corden's name.
Oh, of course I am. And just for good luck, here's one more. Good stuff. So.
When did this one come out?
95, I think this one was.
We should have this up, but we don't.
We never do any research.
Yes, 1995's A Close Shave. Also directed by Nicholas Park. So this one...
The man's a machine. He's just a machine.
Yeah, he makes a movie every 10 years. And they feature Wallace and Gromit. But to be fair, he's making them for all of those 10 years.
That's very true.
Anyway, so this one features Wallace and Gromit. This one actually is an interesting thing that I want to just kind of put a pin in. we were talking about how the wrong trousers kind of typifies the humour and the suspense thriller elements of Wallace and Gromit. This movie is the first one that the premise is Wallace and Gromit have a new job for some reason. This is the first time this happens.
This becomes like a recurrent thing where they just move into a different business. I'm assuming it's because, like, what happens is they start a new business, somebody tries to kill them, so they start another new business. And
well, I was going to say, is it because they're still hard up for cash after the wrong trousers? But the wrong trousers ends with them getting the reward money for Feathers Mcgraw's capture. So,
which is true. Which obviously, keeps the lights on for long enough for Wallace to squander all their money on cheese again.
I think that's the problem, right? That's the implication, is Wallace is blowing all his money on cheese.
Because this whole thing is an allegory for abusive gay drug addicts and relationships and things that happen around that.
Yeah. Just if Nick Park...
I'll stand by this.
If Nick Park is still listening, we've broken through the subtext.
We know what you're about, Park.
Park, we get it. And do you need help?
Blink twice if you need help.
Do you need to talk to Frank? For our American listeners, Frank is a drugs company. I don't know what you'd call it.
A drugs company.
I don't know what you'd call it.
Drug addiction charity.
Yeah, they're like a helpline. Yeah, and their tagline for their helpline was "Talk to Frank."
We don't know who Frank is. It's like Stitcher. We don't know what that is either.
No, we've simply no idea. Anyway, this movie starts with Wallace and Gromit are in the window cleaning business. They got to clean windows. Along the way, they clean the window of Wendellin's.
Windowline?
Windowlines? Windowline? Wensleydale?
Obviously, it's a joke on Windowline, which is a window cleaning product.
Anyway, the point is this. They meet her. Some other stuff happens, and then the movie ends. What happens in this movie? Oh, yes. Because at the same time, they have a sheep problem. How does the sheep...
There's a wool shortage.
There's a wool shortage because there's been sheep rustlers. So this is also important because in the history of Aardman, because this movie introduces Shaun the Sheep, who would later become kind of actually a bigger money spinner than Wallace and Gromit. That's another story.
Very true. And it's also interesting to me that Shaun the Sheep is first canonically introduced in this one, because Shaun the Sheep is a criminal and potential murderer.
Go on.
We'll come to that.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm blanking on this because I watched this last night and my head is now full of Wallace and Gromit. How are we introduced to Shaun again? He just turns up.
So at the beginning of the movie, there's a truck that's being driven that's full of sheep.
Yes.
The truck stops outside of Wallace and Gromit's house, and Shaun ends up getting off the truck and wanders into their house.
And runs amok, eating cheese and the like. Yes, fine.
And eating the house. He just eats everything. He's a little shitbag, to be honest.
I think Nick Park thinks that sheep are goats, is what's happening here. Just my suggestion there. But yeah, eventually the house becomes overrun by sheep as well. Shaun brings
the thing, which...
his whole posse around.
Yeah, they all just end up in the house at one point.
Yeah. Anyway, the point is this. They meet Wendelin and her dog Preston, who's definitely a dog, nothing more.
Preston, who looks like he's about to look at me across the bar in a pub and tell me that you can't say your English in England anymore.
Yeah, Preston has a real racist vibe, right? He has a real UKIP vibe about him.
He fucking does, doesn't he?
For our American listeners, UKIP is the Tea Party.
Yes.
Yes.
So the racist dog and Wendelin.
It's Wendelin because he says Wensleydale at the end.
I'm just calling her Windex.
Okay. Wallace's latest side piece.
It was just Wallace in a wig, may I point out.
Yeah. Anyway, we're getting very... Right, so anyway, let's just read the plot, Mark. So they meet. Wallace has a bit of a potential romance with Wendelin. She drops the bomb that her father was an inventor before he tragically was presumably murdered by Preston. We don't find out how he died, but he's not on the scene anymore.
I'm guessing he just said to Preston that, racism might be a bad thing, and then he got his egg caved in.
Yeah, he said, I'm not sure it's actually true that they lock you up and throw you in jail if you say you're English in England anymore.
And so he just fucking killed him.
Curb stomped right there. Like American History X. There's a reference you weren't expecting on a Wallace and Gromit episode. I like the idea that someone might have put this on as like, oh, let's listen to it. My son loves Wallace and Gromit. Let's listen to this together in the car.
Although, to be fair, I could definitely see Edward Norton playing Wallace in a live-action version.
Yeah, fair enough. Anyway, listen.
Swastika tattoos and all.
The point is, it turns out the cattle rustlers are, in fact, Preston and Wendelin. Preston is a robot dog, so that's weird, but he's malfunctioning, and now he wants to... it started off as they were just nicking wool from the sheeps, but now he wants to turn the sheeps into dog meat, which is fucked.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you, Aidan. I enjoy A Close Shave a lot. The plot is kind of nonsense, and I mean that when...
We've not even got to the darkest moment of this, right? Which is Preston frames Gromit for his crimes, and Gromit goes to prison. It's mad. This film is mad.
Yeah, because one of my favourite gags in this one is the little montage where you're just seeing the newspaper headlines for Gromit's like arrest and trial and imprisonment, and there's just all of the images are just like Gromit being like snapped by the paparazzi with his hand in front of the camera and stuff. I really like that stuff. Yes,
I'm also a big fan of the breakout with the sheep, because Wallace and the sheep spring Gromit from jail.
They do, because Shaun the Sheep is now known as a hard bastard and breaks people out of prison.
Yes. Yeah, I like the gag of they send him the note on the jigsaw puzzle saying, be ready for 9 o'clock tonight or whatever it is. And, or 9 o'clock on the certain day. Let's say Monday for the sake of it. Yeah. And when he puts the final piece in, he goes, looks at the calendar and it's Monday. And he goes, looks at the clock and it's like 9 o'clock. That's a fun little gag.
But
yeah, I also like because they're all piled up on Wallace and Gromit's motorbike, which they have in this. All the sheep are standing on one another's shoulders as they break Gromit out, and I like as they're driving away. Wallace goes to get organised down there, and it cuts away, and it cuts back to the one in like this crazy like pyramid formation on top of the motorbike.
It's great.
It's
so
great. Again, it's just the kind of stuff that like they do it so well. This kind of animated slapstick, and I know what you mean. This film was kind of weird, especially watching it now as an adult. I'm kind of like, it's interesting because it kind of paves the way for what comes next. In fact, in a lot of ways, weirdly, because the plot kind of has similarities to Chicken Run, in the sense that there is this element of like the sheep being turned into dog meat, whereas like a main thing in Chicken Run is like they're going to be turned into chicken pies. It's just a side note that I thought was interesting.
Yeah,
but,
it like a testing ground for a lot of those ideas. You've got the prison break sequence as well, which is great.
Yeah, and obviously Chicken Run is a parody of like the Great Escape. And
kind of you've also got like Preston is very similar to like the dog that's in Chicken Run as well. And
yeah, I mean obviously the Aardman house style is quite, is ubiquitous throughout all their films. Yeah. But I mean this is an interesting one. We should say the plot ends with Wallace and Gromit go to rescue Wendelin and the sheep from the dog meat factory. It's revealed that Preston is a dog terminator. Shaun the sheep kills him by basically by bunting him into this crushing machine.
Yeah, which was intended to be used on Wallace and Wendelin and the sheep. Yeah, to turn them into dogs.
Which leads to an interesting line for me where Wallace goes, "Oh, it's a sheep crusher. Very clever that." And it's like, are you sure, Wallace?
It's a device that crushes sheep. It's not exactly fucking rocket science.
He sounds like a psychopath. Anyway.
Because he is. He's a crackhead.
True, he's off his nut. But yeah, there is some great physical comedy in that as well, where obviously the sheep and everyone else are running on a treadmill that's dragging them closer and closer towards this thing, but they're just running in place, you know. But yeah, Shaun the sheep saves the day, bleats with victory, which as I was watching it, I did say to my partner, is that the sheep language equivalent of "you're terminated, fucker"?
It must be, and if it's not, it now is.
Yeah, because there's definitely some Terminator shout-outs in that last...
Oh, for sure. Like, yeah, when the first time you see Preston without his dog flesh, I guess, which is a weird sentence, I never thought I was going to end up saying. Because they put him into the Knitomatic machine, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
They set to the highest setting, and I'm like, so before they really knew Preston was a robot, they were just going to skin this dog alive in this machine.
Yeah.
Like, I get it.
Yeah.
He was going to try and turn you into dog meat. That's fine. But that seems very cruel and unusual.
As we've established, is a racist.
And we should definitely do that to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the plot to this one is quite mad. And I think it's because it is a short film, so it's condensed quite a lot. And there's a lot more room for dialogue in this one because there's a lot of scenes between Wallace and Wendelin. So I think that's the reason why this one doesn't work as much for me, because there's a lot going on in the story, but it's in such a short space of time, so it feels very rushed.
Yeah. It doesn't have the space to breathe of like Curse of the Were-Rabbit.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like this is definitely a precursor to Curse of the Were-Rabbit, in that they were definitely trying to do something a bit bigger with the story and expanding it with a bigger roster of characters.
It's the first time you really get a lot of the town as well. Like, you see bits of it in The Wrong Trousers, but it's mostly set pieces and certain buildings. Or whatever.
Yeah, because there's the whole bit in The Wrong Trousers where Wallace is inside The Wrong Trousers as they're kind of rampaging through the town, but there's no one around, really. It's quite desolate.
Yeah, whereas this has more of them. You see the town has a clock tower, for example, but you see more of them out and about in the town, which I think kind of becomes a staple of the later ones as well. Especially when you have this element of Wallace and Gromit always having a different job.
Yeah.
You always kind of get a sequence, like you're saying, you always get a sequence of, the Rube Goldberg machines putting the clothes onto Wallace, and then this, sliding down into the front.
And then you get a different breakfast gag in each one. So in this one,
so
it's the
there's
porridge
like
gag, isn't it, in this one?
Yes, and because it's in The Wrong Trousers, the jam hits the toast. So the toast comes out of the toaster, and then the little gun shoots the jam at it.
Whereas in this one, it's a porridge gun, because it gets used again in the final sort of chase scene, where Gromit is in a little aeroplane, which again comes back in the next one.
Yeah, he flies which I assume is a Snoopy thing, because he's Beagle.
Yeah, I suppose so.
So
Yeah.
I
think that's one thing I definitely noticed. There's a lot of recurring motifs throughout all of these, and I think that's why when I watched them all in one go, I wouldn't say it became a little bit tiring, but it definitely wasn't as the movies went on. I definitely found myself less engaged by them, because I was like, we're doing this again, and we're doing this again, and we're doing this again. Yeah,
there's definitely things that come up in. I will say they kind of add to it every time. But
it gets bigger each
there's
time,
things that there's things that they go back to. Yeah.
Because this one has the sort of aerial chase at the end, and then that also happens in Curse of the Were-Rabbit as well. That's quite a big set piece in that movie.
Yeah, so Close Shave, it's an interesting one. It's definitely of the three kind of classic Wallace and Gromits, A Grand Day Out, Wrong Trousers, and Close Shave. It feels like a bit of an outlier in a way, which is odd to say, because even though they have recurring motifs and stuff, they're all quite different.
Yeah, definitely. Because the Grand Day Out is just the little sort of, like, say, I think, like you said, like Steamboat Mickey, that's definitely the best sort of comparison, I think, for A Grand Day Out. And then The Wrong Trousers is your sort of Hitchcockian film noir single white female kind of thing. And then this one is your sort of action heavy Terminator parody it's parody in places, like, I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on in this one, definitely. I think it's pretty good, though. I mean, I think the thing that is going to be most remembered for is introducing Shaun the Sheep, who would go on to be the star of his own TV show and 2 fucking movies. He's actually now a bigger international success than Wallace and Gromit. He's everywhere, Shaun the Sheep. He's a big money player.
Well, I think it's because he has a bit more appeal being just a sheep as opposed to a cheese-obsessed old man and his apparent beagle.
Yeah, that, and I think his series basically has like no dialogue in it.
Yeah, so it's more accessible.
They don't have to do a lot to it to export it to other countries.
Yeah, it's got more mass appeal, like you said. It's the Mr. Bean thing, isn't it?
Yeah, so bearing that in mind, Close Shave.
It's good.
What are you giving it?
It's good. I think it's don't love it as much as I do The Wrong Trousers.
I think it's totally cheeserific. I'm with you there. I think it's very good. It's funny. I like the introduction of a few elements they have here, like the them having a new job every time, which Wallace always has, improbable inventions for. I like the introduction of the running theme of Wallace having these kind of love interests that only last for one film.
Especially like because Wendelin reveals she's allergic to cheese.
Yeah, well, that is one of the funniest gags, isn't it? Where he invites her in for some cheese.
And she says no. And it's so, again, it's a credit to Nick Park's direction, where as soon as she says, oh, I can't eat cheese, it brings me out in a rash, there's just this really great slow zoom in on Wallace's very visibly horrified face as his entire world is shattered around him that he can't pork this woman that looks just like him in a wig. I swear it's the same character model. I swear.
They're very similar. I mean, Aardman people tend to have very similar faces, as to be said. So, moving on to Wallace and Gromit's first and as yet only feature-length film.
Which is soon to be changing, from what I read.
Yes, well, this is partially why we did this, because we're hot off the presses from new news that came out a couple of months ago.
Not that hot off the presses, kind of tepid off the presses.
By our standards, we're hot.
Oh yeah, we're on it, mate.
I mean, the next episode is going to be fucking Batman. That's going to be, a good month and a half after that movie
It just
came
means
out.
that everybody has finally summoned up the courage to sit through 3 hours of Batman. Okay, we're giving people a chance to see this movie.
We're not even going to talk about that one.
No, not even talking about that one.
Are we? No, talking about other Batmans. We're not even going to talk about the Nolan ones. That's how not relevant this one is going to be. It's just going to be us going, do you remember 90s? Anyway, we might talk a little bit about
Jump when Michelle Pfeiffer put that bird in her mouth.
I do remember that. That was weird. Anyway, Wallace and Gromit, Curse of the Were-Rabbit. Look, we'll sum it up real brief, because I assume most people have seen this.
Yeah, I think out of all of the ones we're talking about, I think this is probably the one that people are most familiar with. Probably outside of The Wrong Trousers.
So, this is a DreamWorks co-production, we should say. So, Americans were sticking their oar in at this point.
As they tend
in fact,
to
they
do.
made... Yeah. Always late to the party, though, aren't you? Hey, come on. There's been a weird amount of World War II references in this episode.
Yeah, I feel like as much as we condemn our country for fetishizing World War II, we just keep on fucking doing it.
Look, the Americans joined the war late, all right? Fight me on
Blitz
this.
Spirit. Black pudding.
Oh,
and such.
don't. Oh, don't. Oh, no. Oh. If I have to hear the phrase Blitz Spirit one more fucking time in my life, I might go on a killing spree.
It amazes me that the people you hear these days scream about Blitz Spirit is like, you weren't even alive.
I know. Right, this is a tangent, but let's just bitch.
Let's do it.
For a minute. Since we're talking about a key British cultural export, yeah, I'm fucking sick of hearing, we got through the Blitz, we'll get through this, whenever there's a fucking national crisis, right? Because number one, you didn't get through diddly fucking shit.
You weren't even born.
Unless you're like 80 to 90 years old, you do not get to talk about the fucking Blitz as if you were there. Number two, we didn't have any fucking choice when it came to the Blitz.
We were being
the Germans
bombed.
were dropping bombs on us. We didn't have a choice but to get through it, all right? And also, the thing about getting through the Blitz, yeah, a lot of people died and were maimed in the Blitz.
And lost their homes, and just... It was awful. Like, people talk about it like it's this good thing. It's like, well, we survived the Blitz. It's like... This wasn't a good thing. This was an awful experience.
By the skin of our teeth, you know? Like, that should be the takeaway, not, oh, well, we didn't fucking all... There's still a Britain. No way. Oh.
People seem to think, like, people hid underground and, like, sang fucking Chaz and Dave songs or some bullshit. So they make it sound
Chaz and Dave hadn't even been born. So how they managed that, I don't know.
You know the kind of shit I'm on about. Those, like, Cockney knees up kind of songs. Like, people seem to think that the Blitz was a little party that people had. Like, you just put your blackout curtains up and have a bit of a sing song. It's like, no, it was awful. It was terrible.
Yeah, fuck it up. Fuck it right off.
Shower of bastards, a lot of you.
For our American listeners, the Blitz was what was happening before you guys decided to get off your fucking asses. All right?
America slammed.
Fucking slam dunked.
Fucking Blitz Spirit. Fuck off, you bastards.
Ugh, I know. It's one like what we should actually explain to our American listeners is it's a massive cultural cliche in this country. Whenever something like COVID or something like this shit happens, where people will kind of reference like "keep calm and carry on," which was a slogan at the time of the Blitz, right? And then people will talk about oh, the Blitz spirit, ooh. I'm sure I don't need to actually.
No, it's like we all lived off corned beef and lived in fear.
Yeah, and people like to talk about that as if that's some kind of achievement that we, quote unquote, got through it. When, it's kind of... Yeah, I don't know. British people are dumb.
I feel like, the kind of people that went through the Blitz weren't exactly wanting to talk about it that much, in all honesty.
No. Yeah, it's one of those weird things, isn't it, where the kind of children, or grandchildren in some cases, I suppose, of the people who actually lived through World War II have a very rose-tinted view of it.
Well, it's like that and winning the World Cup in '66. It's like the last time this is
Oh my god. Those are the only things that we're proud of in this country. And by God, we will bring it up at every opportunity.
And kicking a ball.
Every fucking opportunity.
We were an empire once.
We fought them on the beaches and we fought them on the pitches. And we beat them both times. Never mind that Germany has been much more successful at football in the intervening decades than we have. We battered them both times, boys.
So there's this film about rabbits that we should probably talk about.
But to conclude for our American listeners, if you want to, or indeed anyone, we've got Polish listeners, we've got all sorts, Himalayan listeners, yeah? If you find yourself in Britain and you want to get along with the kind of people you see in the pub, you know the sort. Men with one single hair between them.
Ones who look like Preston.
Yeah, but 5 chins apiece. If you want to get along with these people, drinking pints of bitter of a Sunday afternoon, you just need to say 3 things, yeah? The first one, we fought them on the beaches and we'll fight them and we beat them on the football pitch, yeah? Say that, they'll love it. The second one, keep calm and carry on, Blitz spirit. That doesn't even need to be a coherent sentence, just say that. You can trail off to...
At least 2 people raise their glasses to you.
Yeah. yeah. And the third one is, of course, if you say you're English these days, they lock you up and throw away the key.
I just want to know where that came from.
From racists, mate. And the fourth one is, we used to be an empire, now look at us. Then you shake your head, look down to the ground and say, this bloody country, I tell you.
And then about 7 other people around you will do the same thing. It's quite amazing, actually.
This bloody country. There is also one more special passcode for getting along with weird middle-aged British people, yeah? But this only applies in the winter. It's similar. It's related to this bloody country. But you just say this. Snow on the road and the bloody buses stop. Oh, this bloody country. That's all you need. That's all you need. In fact, if you said that to me in the pub, I'd go, fucking tell me about it, mate.
Like, honestly, it's 6 inches of snow and this country is fucked.
Oh, less than 6 inches, my man. We'll take 1.5 inches and that'll do us. We're never prepared. Never prepared.
This fucking country.
This country has gone to the dogs.
The dogs, my friend.
Anyway. Wallace Gromit, Curse of the Were-Rabbit.
Maybe the strangest tangent this show's ever gone on, but I'm here for it.
It's the one other thing that this country is proud of, apart from winning the World Cup in '67 or whatever it was.
Wallace and Gromit.
And beating the Germans at war a couple of times. Wallace and Gromit. We can all agree on Wallace and Gromit. Or maybe not these days. Has Nick Park ever said anything about Brexit? Let's find out. You know, some of the
Can't say you like Wallace and Gromit anymore. You'll get thrown in prison.
Wallace and Gromit puts the great back into Great Britain.
It really does. Okay, I feel like you could achieve world peace just by screening the wrong trousers.
I am literally searching the phrase Nick Park Brexit. See if he's ever said out about Brexit.
I'm in suspense. I want to know whether or not we can keep applauding this man.
Well, the only thing I can see here is it says animated comedy early man. So you'll recall this is Aardman's Stone Age
latest film. Yeah.
Stone Age football comedy from 2018. Animated comedy early man, not about Brexit, and that's in quotes. So that's interesting.
I mean, I didn't get the vibe it was, but
no, it's about cavemen playing football, from what I recall. I'm not entirely sure how the Brexit metaphor gets in there.
I mean, I'd get the 66 thing. That would make sense.
Hey, come on. We beat them on the beaches.
Can't say you're English anymore.
You can't say you're English anymore, Mark. It's against the law. Or it will be if Jeremy Corbyn has his way.
I don't want to keep going down this rabbit hole. I'll just get angry.
Yeah, what is this bit we're doing? Okay, let's get back to let's get back to Wallace and Gromit, please, for the love of God. So, Mark, 2005's DreamWorks.
How do we go back after that, Aidan? We can't say we're English.
Oh no, we simply can't. Even though I thought Brexit was about us saying we're English again. Anyway, enough of that. Enough of that. This podcast is anti-Brexit. Anyway,
in case you couldn't tell.
Yeah. We think Brexit was dumb.
It was fucking stupid.
And the proof is in the pudding, my friends. Which is British for open your fucking eyes. Listen, 2005's pro-Brexit propaganda piece, Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Up. Or at least that's the reading I got. I don't know about yourself.
It's got Little Englander vibes, isn't it? I mean, let's face it, the townsfolk in this movie do even say that they are simple folk and all they have is the giant vegetable competition. Just like
It's true. It's true.
It's like, all a lot of people have is Blitz spirit.
For our international listeners, if you want a realistic portrayal of small-town British life, and I should know, because I grew up in a small village in Britain, this is about right. This is pretty bang on, to be honest. Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Up.
If it wasn't for the animation, you'd think it was a documentary, wouldn't you?
Look, I can tell you this, yeah? It's not annual, but there have been multiple in my lifetimes vegetable growing competitions in my village or the neighbouring town. That's just a fact, all right? That happened. That's true. That's real.
And have they ever been attacked by giant rabbits?
No, not such.
Well, what's the point then?
Anyway, listen, we should actually talk about this movie. So, this was from 2005. As we say, co-production by DreamWorks, who also worked with Aardman on Flushed Away, their CGI offering, which remains controversial among Aardman fans to this day. They also worked on Arthur Christmas with Aardman, which again was CGI. They also backed Chicken Run, which is less controversial and is generally, rightly so, considered a masterpiece. This movie was also a massive success on its release. It was big internationally, but it was massive here. And most importantly, won the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature, beating out the more likely winners, Disney, Pixar, all those kind of people who normally win.
It's also worth noting as well that this was following in the footsteps of the previous shorts, which had either been nominated for Oscars or had won Oscars. The Wrong Trousers did win Best Animated Short, didn't it? As did A Close Shave. So Wallace and Gromit has a special place in Oscars history. But yeah, this is kind of a big win for Nick Park and for Aardman in general. Because this movie, in fact, was co-directed, I believe, by Steve Box. I'll double check that. Also, what is going on with these Aardman names, eh? They're a bit all over the place, aren't they?
Curse of Were-Rabbit. Quite. It was co-directed by Steve Box. Starring Peter Sallis again, but also we have the cream of the crop of British voice acting. We have Helena Bonham Carter as Lady Totty Tottington. We have Ralph Fiennes as the character he plays.
What is his name?
Victor, I think. I just watched this movie. What am I talking about? Why don't I know?
Yeah, I think it's Victor, isn't it?
Yeah, Victor Quartermain, yes.
Victor Quartermain.
And we have...
There's also Peter Kay.
Peter Kay, yes, of course. Yeah.
He's very funny in this movie as well. Actually, I like his performance in this film.
Yeah, as the local policeman, yes.
Whose head upsets me. I just want to throw that out there. The shape of his head is disturbing.
He takes his police helmet off and then his head is the same shape as the helmet.
I was like, so Coneheads is also set in this universe. I like that. Remember Coneheads?
I do remember Coneheads. But anyway, listen, the plot is this. There is a giant vegetable competition that's happening in Wallace and Gromit's town. Wallace and Gromit in this lifetime, in this incarnation, because I have been led to believe that Wallace and Gromit die at the end of every film and then are reincarnated.
Oh, they're like Aeon Flux.
Yeah, exactly, but they have a different profession every time. And they're just trying to break the endless cycle of reincarnation. Will they find enlightenment? Who knows? The point is this, though. They have set up an anti-pest company called Anti-Pesto, and they humanely dispose of the town's problematic rabbit population, mainly by
who
putting
knew that
them in the
rabbits
house.
were such bastards?
Well, they will go for any vegetable they see in this movie. They are mad cunts for the vegetables, which is a problem if you're having a giant vegetable competition, obviously.
It is, and clearly Wallace and Gromit see a gap in the market because their whole anti-pesto business is clearly very lucrative because everybody has their products.
Yeah, right.
Everybody is on their client.
This is something that I wanted to flag up, is that they seem to have everyone, is on their client list, as you say. But they also have this weird setup in their home where they have portraits of all their clients, and they have like gnomes that they've set up on people's lawns that have laser trigger sensors, so that if a rabbit hops by them, it sends a signal back to HQ where the eyes of the portrait light up. And I was literally saying, this is some mad Thunderbirds shit. Look, and as I was scrolling through information on Nick Park, it turns out his Wikipedia entry felt the need to say that Nick Park is a Jerry Anderson fan, which I think explains a lot of what's going on in these movies.
Yeah, but, I mean, the vibe that I got with the whole portraits and stuff and like our beloved client list, I was like, oh, so Wallace is not only a crackhead, he's also a bit of a pervert? I don't know, there's something kind of pervy about the portraits. I don't know what it is.
You have to make everything salacious. What's wrong with you?
I think there's something very salacious about this. I don't know. It didn't sit right with me.
Look, it's small town England, right? It's perverse.
I mean, yeah, they're all into dogging, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. What else are you going to do?
For our American listeners, dogging is a practice in which people have sex in a car and a group of men masturbate to this happening.
Not necessarily just men.
Sometimes women, usually men. There's usually one woman. There's usually one woman being fucked in the car. Sometimes the men are invited to get in the car and also fuck the woman. But the most common practice is a woman is getting railed by her partner in the car whilst a group of men masturbate to said event. It's very, very popular in rural England.
Like, weirdly so. Like, dogging is weirdly widespread in the rural areas.
Yeah, to the point where pretty much any town that surrounds the village my parents live in, coordinates not given, you can pretty much say to somebody like, where's the local dogging spot? And they will sort of know where dogging occurs.
Like, I'll put it this way. My hometown has at least two, and the place where I currently reside, we were making a film one night at about 1 o'clock in the morning and didn't realise the car park we were filming in was a dogging spot.
Oh, so you're there with the camera?
We turned around and saw some cars park up and looked around, and then this truck pulled up and we noticed like the drivers getting in and out, and we were like, oh. It was just one of those moments where we were like, do we wait for them to finish or do we say something?
Well,
it's very weird.
The worst part of that would be if one of the drivers walked up to you and went, oh, great, you're here. And then you suddenly find yourself filming a dogging session. And then hilarity would ensue.
Porn got started.
And then the hilarity would ensue when the actual camera crew turns up. And there's a comical misunderstanding. That doesn't happen in this movie. What does happen is Wallace, he's invented a machine that he's trying to modify his behaviour to kick his cheese addiction and stay on the...
because he's getting fat, basically.
Yeah, and stay on the veg. So he's trying to invent a machine that makes him want to eat veg rather than cheese. However, after removing several thousand rabbits from Lady Tottington's land, he misuses this machine in an attempt to make the rabbits stop wanting veg. So that's the thing. Him and a particular rabbit called Hutch kind of swap brains, ?
Yeah.
The science is iffy, to say the least.
Especially when he's about to use this like mind melding machine thing, and he's like, "Oh, there's a full moon. I guess I'll just use these lunar panels to boost it." I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
This is not an exact science, Wallace.
Anyway, the long and short of it is this: Wallace becomes a were-rabbit, which is exactly what you think it is. And despite the fact that he's cleared the rabbit population away from the town, he becomes the town's biggest menace. Now, Gromit must try and find a cure for his condition. All the while, Wallace is chirping Lady Tottington, much to Victor Quatermain's disapproval, because he wants to bang Lady Tottington. Now, an element here is that Quatermain is a hunter, and he loves to kill animals.
Is it that Quatermain wants to, like, sling one up Tottington, or is it that he wants her money and her house?
Well,
that's the vibe I got. I don't think he was that interested in her.
I think it's a little from column A, a little from column B, you know. Pussy's on the table.
I think he wants to have his cake and eat it, yeah.
Yeah, he wants to... Well, I won't go there. He wants to have something and eat it. Anyway.
Her produce, apparently.
Yeah, quite. I will say, that is something that we should flag up about this particular movie. Oh, by the way, it all ends up okay. So just to sum up the plot. It all pans out. What I'll say about this movie, there seems to be a lot of innuendo in this movie. A lot more than there is in the other ones.
Yeah, for some reason this one's horny. I don't know why it's horny,
Pretty
but
much
horny.
Every gag they can make about a huge vegetable being a little bit like a knob or like a pair of knockers kind of finds its way into
They go
this
for
movie.
it. They go for
They
it.
will go for I mean, there's literally a bit where Lady Tottington is leaning forward onto a massive pair of melons.
And talking about how much... so it's a pun about her produce, yeah.
Yeah,
And I watched this one with a couple of friends, because when I marathoned these movies, I invited people round to be like, yo, I'm watching all the Wallace and Gromits, get involved. Which is a weird thing to say as somebody who's almost 30.
Yeah.
But we all watched this one, and everyone in the room was like, oh, I haven't seen this in years. And we were kind of gobsmacked at how filthy this movie is.
There is a lot of grot in this movie. And one thing that I wanted to flag up is that I know Nick Park mentioned in an interview that DreamWorks kind of pushed for this movie to be made a little more friendly to American audiences. So he was actually saying they cut a lot of more British-specific jokes out of this movie, which I think is a bit of a shame. But I also think that goes some way towards explaining why there's maybe there's a slightly broader sensibility. There's certainly a lot more... I should say, we're saying it's filthy, but there's nothing like actually grotty in this movie.
No, but like for a kids movie, it's pretty filthy.
Yeah. I mean, it's all kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge, sort of sub carry on humor, I guess.
Yeah, but you know what's up.
Yeah, it's not subtle. I mean, there's a bit where after he's cured of his were-rabbit condition, Wallace is completely Billy Bollocks, and Gromit hands him a cardboard box to cover his shame with, and the box says like "may contain nuts" on the side of it.
It's just pretty on the nose.
Yeah, so there's that kind of stuff. There's also "kiss my artichoke" and things like that.
Yep. Yeah, no, I like this one a lot, actually. I think this is a lot of fun. It appeals to me because it's clearly like how the previous ones have done like the Hitchcock stuff, and this one's very much doing Hammer horror, even down to like the framing of some scenes, like the scene where Wallace leaves Gromit in the truck in the middle of the night, and is framed very much like a Hammer horror sequence where we see the giant carrot neon sign, which between shots is like removed and eaten and stuff. That's all great, really, like genuinely quite suspensefully made as well. Like obviously it's a kids movie.
Side note, by the way, the carrot sign that is hanging up on the side of the shop there is for a shop called Harvey's. Harvey's obviously the famous James Stewart movie with the giant rabbit in it. Yes. And there's a lot of that kind of stuff. I mean, this kind of classic Wallace and Gromit stuff with like lots of background gags and kind of, newspapers with amusing headlines and things like that. Yeah, you're right. This movie kind of leans into the Hammer horror vibe. I would almost say like the vibe of this movie is kind of Hammer horror meets Carry On a little bit.
I mean, which they already did. They did Carry On Screaming, which we've briefly discussed on this show before.
Of course we have. Why wouldn't we have? This is the least accessible show to a non-British audience that it could possibly
For
be.
American listeners, Carry On Screaming. No.
They know Carry On, I think.
I mean, sure they must. Anyway, this movie is kind of evoking those kinds of films from that era, I think. And Yeah, the main thing is about this one, it's just so much fun. That's the main
Yeah.
takeaway for this one for me. Is even compared to like the shorts, like this one is just consistently funny. It's got like great set piece after great set piece. The whole plot with Wallace and Hutch sort of switching brains is really, really cool and fun as well. I mean, Hutch is a strange one. He looks disturbed.
Yeah.
He doesn't look
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, Hutch turning into a little rabbit version of Wallace is one of my favourite gags in the movie. I love it's obviously Peter Sellers voicing Hutch as well, but pitched up. One of my favourite lines is where he just goes, the bouncer's gone from his bungee. Which, delivered by the rabbit, is just so funny. But yeah, I mean, the whole movie, I agree with you. This movie's so fun. It has the feel of, like, I mean, it's much better written than most of these, but it has the kind of, it works for all ages vibe of, like, a pantomime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I refuse to explain for our American listeners. There's no way. There's no possible
There's
way.
not enough time to explain what pantomime is and why it's so popular.
It's just a thing, all right? It's just a thing.
It's just blokes in dresses and people throwing sweets at kids.
Mark, we cannot explain this. Anyway, the point is this. It kind of has that appeal of, like, you know, there's jokes aimed at the kids, there's all the slapstick stuff and, like, you know, the general silliness and that kind of tone. Then there's jokes aimed at the adults, and they kind of blended together in a way that isn't too obtrusive. Because, again, I hate to just slam Shrek all the time, but I think this is something that it does so much better than those kind of movies. They're sort of, well, not exactly early DreamWorks movies, but, you know, when DreamWorks kind of was marketing itself as, like, we're like Disney, but there's dirty jokes in our movies. That kind of era. I think some of the stuff sort of sits a little uncomfortably in those movies, where there's very kiddie stuff, and then there's, like, straight up knob gags and stuff. Whereas I think this movie has the right tone, where, you know, I saw this movie for the first time in cinemas when I was, 12? And none of the quote-unquote dirty jokes went over my head because I was 12 years old. But that's kind of the point. It's like they're not so filthy that anyone could be disgruntled by it necessarily. But,
yeah, whereas I think Shrek has out-and-out references to the idea that Lord Farquaad is, you know, rubbing one out to the magic mirror, showing him images of Fiona, which is really quite creepy.
To me, that's a little much for a movie that's supposed to be for families, right?
It is. Whereas, and I've rewatched Shrek recently because me and you had this discussion. Yes. Because I'd had a bottle of wine and thought, why wouldn't I watch Shrek?
Yeah.
God, my life sounds sad, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to point it out.
But what is in that bit with Lord Farquaad where, like, it's implied that he's been, you know, rubbing one out, is that when he says, "Show me Fiona again," the look on the magic mirror's face says it all. It's a haunted look that it gives Farquaad.
Whereas this movie doesn't have anyone jerking off to footage of an unsuspecting woman. This this movie plays it a lot cleaner than that. But yeah, there's definitely yes, any kind of, like, pretty much any and all giant vegetable immaturity is used in this movie. I mean, one of my favourite lines is when one of the villagers goes, "Look at my wife's brassicas, ravaged in the night."
Yes.
Which again is very Carry On, I suppose. And there's also I do love the bit where Victor Quartermain goes to visit the vicar, who's the first person to see the were-rabbit. And on the vicar's desk is a magazine called Nun Wrestling.
Yes, that is so fucking good. That's so funny.
And again, I think that just treads the line where the joke is made that is obviously like a quote-unquote dirty mag, but it's not like, you know, big titty nuns or something. It's, you know...
Yeah, I think it's because, like, it's a very quick gag as well. So, like, the kids can kind of get that it's a filthy gag, but the more you think about the nun wrestling thing, like, the more sort of perverted it gets.
Yeah, it's not... Yeah, it's kind of... But it is on the right line of it. It's just kind of silly. It's not like... It doesn't make you go...
Yeah. You can read more into that if you want to, I think.
Yeah. I think in general, this movie... Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you did. This movie, I think, you're right. I mean, it's a blissful 75 minutes. It's entertaining for that entire runtime. Again, the physical gags are incredible. I mean, the scene where before they realise that the were-rabbit is Wallace, where they're trying to lure the were-rabbit out with a giant puppet of a female were-rabbit, which is operated by Gromit, is one of the funniest things ever committed to film, especially when Wallace starts going, "Come on, lad, put some effort into it, more alluring."
I said this to you before, man. Wallace is way too into that giant fucking rabbit thing that
because
they made.
he is
he's horny for it.
That's the first hint that he's the were-rabbit, Mark.
But it's also showing that he just wants to fuck that rabbit.
Yeah, because he is a male were-rabbit. I don't understand what your problem with that is.
I don't know, man. Like Gromit's piloting that thing, and he's just proper egging Gromit on to be a bit sexy, and it's just I don't know, it just doesn't sit right with me.
He's a lonely man, all right.
I keep saying there's a lot about these films that just don't sit right with me. Wallace and Gromit's relationship is truly quite. It's just disturbing. Okay.
Well, let him without sin cast the first stone. Don't know what I'm suggesting by that. Moving on. But yeah, this movie, I think is really well directed. It's really well written. It's funny. I just want to shout out as well. We're talking about the direction. There's a great scene. So you mentioned the scene with the were-rabbit, where the carrot with the bite out of it, or the sign in the shape of a carrot lands on the car. This is where there's a great little touch that I only actually noticed in this viewing, where Gromit gets out, because we should say Wallace has fucked off somewhere, and he's transforming into the were-rabbit is the thing.
Yeah.
Gromit gets out of the car to kind of look for Wallace, kind of looks around, and you see Gromit's ears silhouetted on the wall behind him, and then when Gromit gets back into the car, the ears are still there.
Yeah,
so it's the ears of the were-rabbit.
Really great little moment. Yeah.
And there's loads of little touches like that just make this movie kind of a cut above the normal kind of animated family comedies, I think, and makes it rewatchable as an adult. I saw this as a 12-year-old, and I saw it as a 29-year-old today, and it still works.
Yeah, I think it's especially like that scene that you described is that like it's evoking horror movies in a way that doesn't feel like it's sort of like poking fun at them. It's actually going like this is an actual horror scene, because the bit where the carrot lands on the car, like, I imagine that probably shit quite a few kids up when this first came out.
Yeah. There's genuinely some atmosphere to it. Yeah. I think
that's what I
in terms of
a lot.
In terms of the rating system, I think this is a good.
Oh, it's a solid good, approaching Kino, definitely.
Kino's not in this rating system, Mark.
I don't care, mate. Wrong Trousers is pure, unfiltered Kino.
You're trying to blend the two rating systems. You're trying to blend the two oversimplified rating systems. Anyway, so yeah, I think we're both pretty much of one mind on that. Let's move on to the final instalment, another short film from 2008, A Matter of Loaf and Death. Now, we should say this movie, for reasons I wasn't quite able to ascertain, is controversial among the Wallace and Gromit fandom, such as
I could sort of see why.
People do not like to include this, or certain people do. I'm sure the vast majority of people do not give a shit. But I think
there's some Wallace and Gromit diehards out there, and they're the ones that will holler about this. But there's probably that's a very small subset of people that I don't particularly want to be associated with.
But I will say, A Matter of Loaf and Death, I think it's the one that people kind of forget exists. Because definitely, like when I spoke to people about we're doing Wallace and Gromit. They were like, oh, so it's it's the 3 shorts in the movie. It's like, oh no, there's 4 shorts. There's one that came out after the movie. I think people kind of forget that, and I think it lives slightly in the shadow of Curse of the Were-Rabbit is the thing. It's almost like a little bit of a step back from the grander scale of Were-Rabbit, I think.
Yeah, because this is the one that I hadn't seen, because I knew I'd seen all the other ones previously as a kid, but this is the one that I definitely hadn't seen, because this came out, 2008?
Yes.
So yeah, I would have been 16 at this point. So, Wallace and Gromit was not on my mind at this point in my life.
Rude.
I was too busy getting drunk in fields, that's what we did in the rural towns.
I did both.
Nerd.
So I was just a little bit cooler than you.
I don't know, mate. You were 16 years old and watching Wallace and Gromit. I don't know if I'd call you cool.
Mate, you're 29 and you just watched Wallace and Gromit.
For the sake of this fucking show.
I'm just saying, bro. I'm just saying.
But yeah, so I hadn't actually seen this one. And I didn't really know what it was about either. So when we were doing the sort of pre-stuff for this, the pre-stuff? It's been a long day.
Yeah, the pre-cum, yeah.
The pre-cum. The pre-cum to the grand finale. I read the premise of this one. It was like, Wallace and Gromit run a bakery. I was like, oh, that sounds fun. That's another new job for them. It's like, there's a serial killer. I was like, I'm sorry, what? I was like,
Yes.
There's a serial killer plot in a Wallace and Gromit movie. It's like, that's a bit dark, isn't it?
Yeah,
so I was actually quite excited to watch this one because I was like, sick, this sounds more like my kind of thing. I wasn't massively enamoured with this one. I'm not going to lie. It's good. I don't think it's this. I probably would say it's around the same level as A Grand Day Out for me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's just quickly go over the plot. I know we're running longer than we said we would, but
That's fine.
So, A Matter of Loaf and Death.
Shorter than our previous episodes.
So, Wallace and Gromit become bakers, and all is well until Wallace encounters what's she called? Paella Bakewell, voiced by Sally Lindsay, who used to be on Coronation Street. Which
For our American listeners,
which
Coronation
again,
Street has
we
been
simply
going
don't
forever.
We don't have time. It's a soap. It's a soap. But it's
Soap, yeah.
it's a British soap opera though. So if you're imagining people, coming back from the dead with different faces and things like that, that's not what Coro's about.
No, British soap operas are literally people sitting around in the pub complaining about things.
That is basically what Coronation Street is. People having affairs. Occasionally there's a murderer on the street. We'll say that. There was Dodgy Richard back in the day. Don't forget about him.
Yeah, I remember that. That was when Corrie was actually very watchable.
He drove... Yeah, Marc only tunes in for the killer episodes.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was that... What was that? The Asian guy who runs the shop had a dodgy ex-wife as well, who came back to kill some people. Anyway,
I mostly just remember Richard. I just remember him.
Yeah, Richard. He was the proper villain.
Yeah, he was like killing people with a crowbar and shit. Yeah.
Richard Platt, right? Because it's Gail Platt's husband.
Yeah, and then he tried to drown his wife and kids. Corrie got dark for a while.
Yeah, he drove them into the river in a car.
Yeah.
Also, there was a tram crash that killed loads of characters. Remember that?
Yeah, every so often in British soaps, there's like a big, not natural disaster, but like a big disaster that happens.
Anyway, now all the Americans have definitely stopped listening.
We've caught them up on 60 years of Coronation Street.
60 jeffing years. Holy fuck. You know what? It's probably about 60 years, right? Because it might even be longer than 60 years,
I remember it had its 50th at some point in recent times.
I'm trying to measure it as I do all things by its relation to Doctor Who. But I'm pretty sure it started earlier than Doctor Who. And bear in mind, Doctor Who will be on its 60th in next year.
Okay, well, before we talk more about A Matter of Loaf and Death, let's just, for the American listeners, because this entire episode has been for the benefit of those...
For those dirty Yanks. No, just kidding.
So,
really.
Coronation Street first debuted in 1960.
Holy shit. So, yeah, it says 62 years old now.
62 years, damn, it's been going that long. People still watch it.
Yeah, fucking hell. Anyway.
I don't know why.
Although one side note, since we're on British soaps, not Coro, but EastEnders. So EastEnders has been running continually for decades, right? And when COVID hit, the cast had to stop recording because obviously everyone was in lockdown. And bear in mind, it's been going for almost as long as Coro's, like 40, 50 years, something like that.
EastEnders came out in the 80s, I think.
Okay, so a little bit less. But anyway, point is this: it's been running continuously for decades. They shut it down because of COVID, and that was considered the end of season 1. So after like 40 odd years, season 2 started. Because
is that true? Is that actually true?
And they advertised it as such because there simply had never been a break in production from the time it started in like the early 80s to 2020.
Oh my god, that's insane!
I know.
I love that. Oh,
I mean, I both love and hate it. Anyway, A Matter of Loaf and Death.
Yeah, so enough about British soaps.
This is the most ADHD episode we've ever recorded.
Oh, this is I don't know what this episode is, mate. When you first said, let's do Wallace and Gromit, I was like, oh, we might have a nice, pleasant time. But this has just been the
Sinister.
worst.
It's been sinister.
It really has.
There's been dark overtones to this whole thing.
Just like Wallace and Gromit.
It's because we're covering British media. I genuinely think this. when we would talk about American things, it's always like, you know, happy and American. Whereas because we're talking about Britain, and Britain is essentially an awful, dark, terrible place, I think it brings the worst. It brings the worst out in us.
I mean, why do you think this podcast is so foul? Like, it's because we're British.
Britain. Anyway,
that's Richard Nixon, isn't it?
Yeah, I was going for Churchill, but it came out as Nixon.
Churchill the Prime Minister or Churchill the dog?
A little bit of both. A little bit of both. Well, because Churchill the dog, he's more northern. He's like, oh yes.
For our American listeners, Churchill the dog is the mascot.
Can't explain that one. We'll move on. Right, listen. A Matter of Loaf and Death.
Yeah, so Matter of Loaf and Death. Yeah, I hadn't seen this one prior, so as soon as I was like, oh, there's this fucking serial killer plot, let's do that. So like you say, he meets Paella Bakewell?
Yes.
Why is it all of Wallace's love interests are like, they're like Bond girl names?
Yeah, they're family-friendly Bond girl names. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
There's no pussy galore in this.
No, it's just... just so stupid, man. Yeah, so Paella Bakewell, she used to be the model / spokeswoman for
the Bakelite, because they say she's as light as a feather. She's the Bakelite girl,
which I'm pretty sure is I know that's a sort of multi-layered reference to several advertising campaigns from like the 70s and 80s for like bread and stuff like that. I can't give you the specific examples because my brain does not retain that information.
Back in the 70s, the way we sold flour and bread in this country was through sexual objectification of women.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's what Paella Bakewell is.
I thought you were about to say, that's what the British Empire was built on.
No, because I can't say we're British anymore either.
Oh yeah, if you say you're British, they'd lock you up and throw away
the police are already knocking at my door, mate.
They'd lock you up and throw away the key. So yes, he has a chance encounter with Paella Bakewell, who, long story short, does a bit of a Feathers Mcgraw, moves in with Wallace, kind of gets him engaged to her. Gromit finds out through means of his attraction to Paella's abused poodle. She discovers that she is the serial killer who's on the loose, and she wants to kill Gromit. Sorry, not Gromit. She wants to kill Wallace, so that he'll be the 13th victim in her killing spree. So she has a baker's dozen.
Which I'm not gonna lie, I love that.
Yeah, it's great.
That's actually great.
It's deeply fucked that this is in a Wallace and Gromit story, but it's pretty funny. And anyway, the long and short of it is this. There's comedy capers. Wallace eventually comes to see that Paella is, in fact, a murderess. There's a fight scene that takes place in a windmill, because bread, I guess.
Yeah.
And Paella dies eventually.
Yeah, we need to talk about that because
is that the first confirmed death in Wallace and Gromit? Because even Preston gets rebuilt after he goes through the Mcgraw.
That's true. But that's fucked as well, because when they rebuild Preston, we didn't talk about this when we did mention the close shave, but like, rebuilt Preston is just like, that's not okay. Like, he's clearly got brain damage, and he's just being paraded around.
Yeah, but he was a racist, don't forget, so...
Oh, well, it was already brain damage then, okay.
Yeah, because Feathers Mcgraw just goes to prison. Although I think we can assume he got the electric chair at some point.
Probably. Well, in a close shave, actually, when you see Gromit's cell, there's graffiti on the wall that says Feathers was here.
Yeah.
Which is a nice little touch.
Yeah, I don't think... Does anyone die in Curse the Were-Rabbit? What happens to Victor Quartermain?
Oh, no, he gets chased away by the townsfolk when he's dressed up in the rabbit costume. So it's implied he might die, because the townsfolk would probably kill him.
Oh yeah, this is a Midsummer situation.
Yeah, they were very protective of their crops, and so they killed him. So I'm gonna say it's the second death. It's the on-screen death.
No, Paella is the first confirmed kill in the Wallace and Gromit franchise.
Yeah. Also, we need to talk about Paella's reasoning for her killing spree.
Yeah, she got too fat to be the baker-like girl because she was eating bread every hour God sends. So now she hates bakers because of that.
So she got fat is the reason.
Yeah, that's something that I think does kind of throw the vibe off of this movie a little bit. There's a little bit of like a fat-phobic vibe in this movie Because they do a few gags about Paella being fat. Although one of my favourites is they do a bread kneading scene that's a parody of Ghost.
Yeah.
And Gromit can't get his hands around her because she's too wide. But
yeah, I think that's what it is, because like there is something quite mean-spirited about this one.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite fit the overall tone of the Wallace and Gromit stuff, because even when like you've got things like Feathers Mcgraw, like, who is quite sinister, it never feels mean in any way.
No.
And it does feel like they treat Paella's weight in a very kind of negative and harsh way.
Yeah, and because it's not just that it's her motivation, it's that they make constant jokes about it. Like, in fact, her death is that at the end is where she escapes from the windmill on the old Bakelite. It's like a little hot air balloon thing, and she's too heavy for it. So when she sails over the zoo, she falls into the alligator enclosure, which is kind of hilarious.
It's funny,
also, yeah.
But
Again, I think maybe it's just a case of there's one too many of them, and it starts to be a bit like. Because there is quite a good verbal gag earlier on where Wallace recognises her as the Bakelite girl, and he goes, "Oh, well, you're still ballooning," and she goes, "I beg your pardon." And he goes, "Oh, the hot air balloon."
Yeah, I think it's because like it didn't fully sit well with me, because I just thought it just seemed a little bit mean-spirited. Which is not what I attribute to these movies. I always find for them a bit more playful and a bit more fun, and that just it felt there was punching down a little bit, which is not something I think I should ever say about a Wallace and Gromit film.
I think it'd be kind of more acceptable if there was just one of those, if they picked one. Because in fact, if they left it at the "Are you still ballooning" line, and her taking offence to it. The gag is kind of her taking offence to it rather than Wallace being like, "You're a big fat bitch."
Yeah, and at the end basically being like, "Oh yeah, she's killed because she's fat." Like, that's the reason she dies.
Yeah, and it's kind of like the thing is, I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to say like it's her problem, like she's obsessed with it, kind of thing.
Yeah, because Wallace doesn't care. Like, Wallace is in love with her regardless. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's it's just one of those things where I think they misjudged some of the humour around that a little bit. I think as well the fact that like they show that the poodle is like clearly like abused and is shaking a lot is kind of like
this
a little fucked. I don't know.
This one, I think it goes a bit far, and I think this is why people don't like it that much. I think people think it's tonally far too drastically different to what's come before.
It's clearly them trying to get back to that tone of like close shave and long trousers, where there is the like suspense thriller element. But I think you're right. I think it goes a little too far in some places. I mean, I still think this is pretty enjoyable and pretty funny.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
There's some great gags in it. I love the gag of her. One of her murder attempts on Wallace is just baking an unconvincing. It's not even a baking. It's just like an unconvincing cardboard cake with a bomb inside it. That's pretty funny. And then obviously they have the homage to Adam West's Batman when. Because that's the funny thing about the bomb is it keeps coming back as well. Like it keeps rolling back into the windmill and then they take it out again. And there's the homage to Adam West's Batman where Gromit has the bomb and he runs over to one side and it's a pool of ducks with like a mummy duck and a load of baby ducks. He runs to the other window and there's nuns with a bunch of kittens in their arms. And, it's the classic some days you just can't get rid of a bomb gag.
The gag that really got me, because it's so sinister, is when you go into Paella's room where she's got all those mannequins of the men that she's killed.
The bakers,
with the bake hats on. But they're positioned around her bed. So she just sleeps at night surrounded by these mannequins. I was like, it's like something out of Hannibal.
Yeah.
It's weirdly, inappropriately dark for this movie.
Yeah. It's an interesting one. It's an interesting one, certainly. I know what you mean. I guess I can kind of see why this is maybe a slightly more contested entry into the Wallace and Gromit saga, the franchise. Because it does kind of... I don't know if I say it's mean-spirited, but there's an edge to it that is not present in the others, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's probably looking at it nowadays as well. Like, I was watching it thinking, this probably wouldn't fly if they made it now.
Yeah, which considering...
It would definitely be viewed more harshly now, I think.
Yeah. And considering there's a few cheeky gags in Curse of the Were-Rabbit. A particular favourite of mine is when they're in the greenhouse towards the end, and Lady Tottington sprays Victor Quatermain with a bottle marked pansy spray. Shoots, gets him in the eyes, and he goes, like, you know.
I think that toes the line quite well, though.
Because that's quite cheeky, but like again, it's kind of like only the adults in the audience would pick up on it, and only the ones that were paying enough attention to read the bottle. So
I think it's also because that joke's a little bit multi-layered, because obviously they're in a greenhouse, pansies. Like it's not entirely mean in its intent, I think.
Yeah. But and there's definitely throughout the others, there's definitely, you know, some cheekier gags, some edgier gags, but like, yeah, I know what you mean. This one, I think, because there's all the fat stuff, but then there's all the serial killer stuff as well. Whereas kind of like those two things sitting side by side, it doesn't really balance itself out well enough. Which is not to have a go at, I think the voice acting is great for the character.
Oh, yeah, she's fantastic. She really is.
I almost think it's also like, because this movie opens with her creeping up on an unsuspecting baker and bashing him over the head with a rolling pin, and then he falls face down into a load of dough. Which, like, and they make it funny because his glasses fly off his head and end up on the back of his head.
Yeah.
But, like, again,
it's pretty nasty.
Yeah, it's the fact that, like, we've got a confirmed kill. Oh, maybe, okay, there are 2 confirmed kills in this.
There you go, then, yeah.
Well, I guess, if we're counting the bakers that were killed off screen, there's 13 confirmed kills, including Paella. But, and this is kind of what I mean, is, like, I'm not sure that a Wallace and Gromit story should open with a murder. Like,
sets the wrong tone, I think.
And I know we've had characters who are explicitly murderers in this franchise before. I mean, Feathers Mcgraw comes to mind.
Oh yeah, he's killed many people.
But again, it's that kind of thing where, like, okay, so comparing it to like the gag where, you know, that we mentioned earlier, where he pulls the revolver on Gromit. That's kind of a shock gag, but again, it's rooted in just the absurdity of the situation.
Yeah, rather than penguin just pulls a gun out.
Yeah, and it's that kind of thing of like, Gromit coming in to save Wallace and then immediately having a gun poked in his face. But and like I guess there's some stuff in Kess the Were-Rabbit, like Victor Quatermain like really wants to kill rabbits, which.
But again, that's kind of undercut by when there's like, you have to have 24 carat bullets to kill a were-rabbit.
It's always kind of undercut by the silliness of the situation as well. Whereas this is quite like.
It's played quite straight, really, isn't it?
Paella Bakewell is a psychopath in a way that is not really played for laughs. Because there's a bit in this as well, right, where she's trying to discredit Gromit in front of Wallace, because Gromit's caught on to her, obviously. And he has stuff like this. There's some fun stuff where he's installed a metal detector in the house and things like that.
That's really good. I like that.
There's a bit where she bites herself and blames it on Wallace. And the animation... I keep saying Wallace instead of Gromit. Blames it on Gromit. And the animation for that, where she just bites down on her arms whilst locking eyes with Gromit, is genuinely a bit upsetting. Like, I watched that last night, I was like, ugh, that's not fun. That's horrible.
Yeah, it's... It's kind of funny how, like, the Wrong Trousers is essentially single white female, and this one is, like, Fatal Attraction. Like, Nick Park has a thing for these, like, female thrillers, the, you know, sort of salacious female thrillers, and I'm kind of here for it.
It's fucking Fatal Attraction. It's a bit Basic Instinct as well.
Yeah. Watch this space, listeners. Ooh. You couldn't see it, but I crossed and uncrossed my legs as I said that.
Yeah, and his dick flopped out.
Yeah.
How could you do a Wallace and Gromit friendly Basic Instinct gag?
I don't know, I feel like it'd have to be uncrosses his leg and like a lump of Wensleydale falls out or something. Along those lines. It's got to be in it, like.
Yeah, I mean
that's a knob cheese gag, and I think that's probably going a bit too tasteless with this.
You reckon? Anyway, so where is he going to go with this? Oh yeah, so this movie ends on a happy note though, with Paella's brutal death at the hands of crocodiles.
She keeps those alligators fed for at least a week.
Because we should say
she's fat. The movie has to keep reminding us of that.
Because we should say when they meet Paella and the poodle, there's an accident which involves Paella and the poodle falling into the... Oh, no, just the poodle falling into the alligator's mouths. And like Gromit saves him. Anyway, and Gromit also saves the abused poodle at the end, who it's implied stays with them.
Yeah.
Because she was going to leave.
We've not had a movie since, so we don't know whether or not that's been a more ongoing thing. Maybe Gromit actually can like keep a woman, because Wallace sure can't.
Yeah, there's actually a weirdly because that's what I think that's kind of what they're playing off, right? It's like because the movie it kind of plays off the end of A Close Shave where the poodle goes to leave, but then she's like waiting on the drive when they leave in their little van, and she goes with them. There is a surprisingly dirty gag as well where as they're driving off, I mean you see this from up above as the car's driving off into the distance.
Yeah,
it swerves a little bit, and Wallace goes, "Oh, yeah, just hands on the wheel, lad."
Yeah, that got quite the reaction out of the room of people I watched this with.
Because Gromit was going raw on this poodle, apparently.
Because Gromit fucks, listeners.
Yeah, Gromit fucks. Gromit fucks. He doesn't make love, he fucks.
Just
now, I imagine as far as dogs go, Gromit's a fairly considerate lover.
That's not... I didn't need you to say that to me.
What are we giving this anyway? Are we giving it good, but I hate it, shit?
I'm giving it like low tier good. Like it's not bad by any stretch, but it's really not up to the same standard as what I think.
Yeah, I think it's a good. It's bordering more towards good, but I hate it than shit, certainly. But
yeah, because this thing, like if I was going to be rewatching the Wallace and Gromit films anytime soon, this wouldn't be one that I'd be sort of clamoring to rewatch.
No.
Same as like Grand Day Out in that sense, whereas like the other three definitely. But this one not so much. I felt like it was fun and it was an interesting divergence for the series, but I think tonally it's really not what I want from these films.
Yeah, I'm glad in a way, although it's unfortunate that Peter Sellers can't be involved. I'm glad in a way that they're doing more Wallace and Gromit after this. So like, because in a way this has a nice ending for the series where Gromit gets the girl at the end. But I wouldn't mind them doing one more to round it. I mean, I imagine it won't be one more, right? It's never one more.
No,
but,
it's never one more. It's a franchise.
Yeah, but one more to round it off would be something, I think. Just because this one's a little bit wonky. It's not bad, but it's
Yeah,
like
it's they tried something different and it didn't quite work. I think the other thing as well is, and I think this might be another reason why a lot of the fans don't tend to go for this one, it's the most grounded of all of them as well.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the sort of insane over the top set pieces that say like Wrong Trousers does and stuff. Like you have the bike accident scene at the beginning and like the bit with the alligators, which feels very in the sort of standard Wallace and Gromit vein. But the rest of the movie, they're kind of just pottering around Wallace's house and then the actual like bakery itself. It doesn't feel particularly high stakes or particularly like set piece heavy. It's more like she is a serial killer and she is trying to kill Wallace.
Yeah.
And it doesn't go. It's not very heightened compared to the other ones.
They do have the climax with all the the gears and stuff in the windmill, which feels more of a piece with the other stuff. There's some good farcical stuff, but I know what you mean. It takes a while to get there, considering it's a half an hour film. I mean, it kind of builds to the climax, but like, and there's a lot of shenanigans with the bomb and like they're going over the is it the spokes of a windmill? What are the little bits of a windmill called?
Blades.
But blades will do, yeah. The blades of a windmill, there's lots of like nice business, and that sequence is great. But I know what you mean. I kind of miss the more shenanigans based Wallace and Gromit, I guess, in this one. I think also it's like for a short Wallace and Gromit piece, it's very focused on Paella in a way, and like Close Shave, although it introduces the love interest character, she doesn't actually have that many scenes in the movie, and
no, not
the
really.
story is more about Wallace and Gromit themselves, which I think is kind of maybe a shortcoming of this one. Is like it kind of has that Pinky, Elvira, and the Brain vibe, where it's like, I like what we've got, but you're adding in this element that you're sort of hinging this entire thing around. And it's a bit like, you didn't need to do that, necessarily.
It sort of feels like adding Wallace and Gromit into it as an afterthought. It's more about this killer of bakers.
Yeah, and maybe if they'd done something, maybe if it wasn't Wallace and Gromit related, it might be like if it was just its own short, and it was just about a hapless baker who happens to, and it could be a little darker without feeling like it was deviating from what Wallace and Gromit was. I think maybe people would accept it more, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because Aardman have gone dark before. Like, they did a lot of the stuff like Angry Kid and stuff like that, which was a lot more in poor taste, I guess.
Yeah, well, they've done more grown up, quote unquote, stuff before. Yeah, so I don't think this is like bad at all. I enjoyed watching it, but yeah, it definitely the kind of I guess you might say the bum notes kind of stood out a bit more this time around, especially after watching the other 4 Wallace and Gromit films in a row. This
came at the end of my binge, and I was definitely feeling the fatigue on this one.
Yeah. I definitely think it's kind of. I don't want to say it's the worst one, because I don't know if that's necessarily.
It's the weakest, I would say.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I can see why it's a bit of an afterthought to most people, because it doesn't really have the same energy as the rest of them, I guess.
No, again, I admire that they did something kind of different with it, but it's just, it's not quite to the same level, but it's not bad at all.
Yeah, so I think we've given that a good. We're about ready to wrap this puppy up, but let's quickly do some character rankings, because we've not done that yet, and that is a staple.
That's true, actually.
Of Aidan and Marc versus, by which I mean we did in the Scream one. So character rankings. Let's go with Wallace.
He's a 10. We like Wallace.
Yeah, he's got to be a 10. He's a classic. Do you know what? Let's not even bother with Wallace and Gromit. They're just both 10s.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wallace is hilarious. Gromit is the greatest straight man ever to be in comedy. So yeah, 10 out of 10 for both of them.
Absolutely.
Let's see, what other characters have we got? The stove robot who lives on the moon.
Like a 3, 4. I'm not that keen on him.
I would give him a 5 purely because he's a great design. But as a character, what's he all about? He wants to ski. He lives on the moon. I don't know.
There's not enough about him for me to sort of grasp onto, I think. He's okay. He's fine.
He's not enough of a villain, is he? That's the problem with him.
No, he's just kind of there. Especially when you then move on to, say, Feathers Mcgraw.
Who's obviously a 15 out of 10.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, one of the greatest comic creations ever. He's just amazing. And I would love it if he was brought back.
I think they want to resist that, though,
Well, he did make a reappearance in one of the games. I know that.
Yeah, I believe there's a cameo that I've always looked for, but I've never seen it in Curse of the Were-Rabbit. So I think, the problem with Feathers Mcgraw is that thing of it's so perfect in the wrong trousers.
Yeah, you do run the risk of ruining it.
Yeah. What I would like is if they had another character who went to the zoo prison, for example, and Feathers Mcgraw was in the cell opposite him. That I would like. That would be enough for me. I don't think we need, like, the revenge of Feathers Mcgraw,
No, but yeah, 15 out of 10, absolutely.
Oh, actually, do you know what could be fucking hilarious? If they do, if the next Wallace and Gromit is a feature length, which I believe it is, if they had a scene that was riffing on like Silence of the Lambs, but it was Gromit, it was Gromit going to visit Feathers Mcgraw, and it was like a silent exchange.
Yes, that'd be so good.
That could be really funny. Nick Park, if you're listening, I want money for that. If I go and see the next Wallace and listen, Nick, sit down. If I go and see the next Wallace and Gromit, and it's a fucking Silence of the Lambs parody with Feathers Mcgraw, you'll be hearing from my solicitor.
It's on record already, so Nick,
everyone will back me
yourself.
up. Everyone who's still listening will back me up. So just my mum,
and like 4 other people who
they all
clearly have no life.
They all give up before the end credits. Mark, come on.
They probably do.
Anyway, Feathers Mcgraw, we love him. Moving on. What are so Wendelin? What do we reckon? Wendelin.
I've as a character, not massively keen on her, but I'll give her like a 7 or an 8 purely just for that bit at the end where she reveals she's allergic to cheese, because that's genuinely hilarious to me.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of feeling strong 6, light 7. I think the problem with the cliche for me, like, I love what it is, but I think it's one of those things that it could benefit from being a feature, where you could get into.
Yeah, it doesn't have enough time to develop a lot of its characters and such. I think it's the whole fact that Preston, who obviously we'll rank in a second, the fact that Preston's a robot is like, okay.
Yeah, it's just kind of thrown in there, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, he wants someone to dog meat, okay.
Yeah.
Like, there's just, the plot moves so quickly and moves through all these beats, it's a little bit disorientating, I think.
Yeah. On a similar note, let's just move on to Preston. I kind of want to give him like a light 8, strong 7. But he's
I'm in
a
the
racist.
5-6 category myself. I like him, but I don't know. He comes hot off the heels of my boy Feathers, and you just can't really compete.
Yeah,
you?
he is second tier to Feathers. But I think he's kind of in that category where, and this is a laboured metaphor, listeners, but bear with me. He's in that category where he's kind of Tom Hardy's Bane, where it's like, it's never going to be the Joker. And they kind of don't try to make it that. And for what it is, it's iconic in its own right. But it's just never going to be the thing that came before.
No, it just can't be, because they just got it so right first time round.
And I kind of feel like that's the position that Preston is in. He's great in his own way, but yeah, he's no Feathers.
I mean, and I kind of feel like the analogy works even better, because I would say that the stove creature thing on the moon is very much Liam Neeson's Ra's al Ghul, in that I just don't really care for it.
Controversial opinion.
It's just not a great Ra's al Ghul.
I would say stay tuned, but we're not discussing that one on the next episode. So.
No, we are not. Michelle Pfeiffer, though, we'll talk about that.
Certainly we will. And Jim Carrey.
Yes. Jim Carrey.
Oh boy, is he in that movie. Anyway. we're still talking. Oh, Shaun the Sheep.
Shaun the Sheep, 10. Love him. He's great.
Yeah, he's a great little sheep. 10 out of 10.
He's a good little sheep and he eats all the cheese.
He fucking loves his cheese.
He does.
I do like that he's wearing a jumper for most of it as well.
The one bit that I do want to quickly shout out about Shaun, though, is that, the bit at the end where Wallace opens up the thing with the cheese on it and finds Shaun in there eating it. He's like, oh, you bad sheep. But then it's when he turns to Gromit and goes, Gromit, get him!
Yeah, he goes, go for him, Matt. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just like, did he just instruct Gromit to kill the sheep?
Yeah, but Gromit doesn't.
No, he doesn't, because I think Gromit secretly enjoys seeing Wallace get wound up by Shaun.
Well, he knows as well that Wallace's cheese addiction is a problem.
Which obviously then bleeds into Were-Rabbit, where he's trying to make him lose weight.
Correct. See, there's continuity. Speaking of Were-Rabbit, Lady Totty Tottington.
She's like a solid 9, I think.
Yeah.
Purely
I think she's
because...
the best of Wallace's love interest, by far.
Absolutely. I think since Bonham Carter's performance is great. Like, her accent is ridiculous, and I love it. Just the way she says ours.
She's certainly the sexiest of Wallace's love interest.
With a what's-it hairstyle and buck teeth.
Oh, baby. Although I do want to bring something up about Totty before we do finish, though. Because we've mentioned that Wallace is a bit of a James Bond figure. He goes through a different woman every time. And they're never mentioned in the next movie.
Yeah.
Now, I want to add a little bit of controversy to this here. So, by the time A Matter of Loaf and Death rolls around, Lady Totty Tottington, not on the scene. As far as we can tell. Because Wallace is getting engaged to some other bird, right? But anyway, in the DFS ads, where Wallace Gromit and Lady Tottington flog sofas to the unsuspecting British public, they are clearly a bit of a thing. And these ads aired after A Matter of Loaf and Death. So, because number one, Lady Totty Tottington is invested in Wallace getting sofas. So that's one thing. Clearly, she's around the house a lot. Number two, one of those ads features, rather quite distressingly, Wallace giving Lady Tottington a foot rub. So I don't think they're just friends, is all I'm saying.
No, there's definitely some intimacy between them.
Because as we know from Pulp Fiction, giving a foot rub is not the same as eating her out, but it's in the same ballpark.
I don't want to... Do you imagine he puts cheese spread on her?
Oh, dear me. So anyway, Victor Quartermain. I think, purely for Ray Fiennes, I'm giving him an 8.
Yeah, I'm about the same with you on that. I think Ray Fiennes' performance is good. Him and Bonham Carter are just having such a good time.
Yeah, they're having it
in their
up.
voices. Yeah.
I think that's kind of all we need to really do for the characters for Were-Rabbit. I do want to shout out the policeman played by Peter Kay.
Yep. I like Mrs. Mulch is her name.
Yeah.
Voiced by Liz Smith. She's very funny.
Peter Kay gets one of the best lines as far as says, I suspect it was arson. Arson? Aye, someone arson about. Which is great. Lived in infamy in my household.
It's a thoroughly British line, that one.
Oh, and of course the vicar's hilarious in that as well.
Oh yeah, he's great as well.
And Hutch the rabbit deserves a shout out. Anyway, that's that. Matter of Life and Death. So we've got the poodle, whose name I can't remember.
Fluffles. Is her name.
Fluffles.
Solid 7, I think. You know, she's kind of a very tragic character.
Yes. She is the kind of... Yeah, she kind of is the, like, abused woman that Gromit gets into the case for. There's some weird shit going on in that movie, right? But,
yeah, I don't know. Like, Nick Park, are you okay?
But, yeah, I think she's a 7. She's cute, funny. And it's nice to see Gromit getting his end away.
he deserves it. After years of the shit he puts up with, I think, yeah, he deserves to get his leg over.
Get his leg over. But, yes. So that's that. Now, we come to the controversial one. Paella Bakewell.
I don't know, I'm kind of conflicted, because on the one hand, I love her whole thing of Baker's Dozen, because it's just funny to me. Mm. The fat jokes and her motive for actually killing is a bit weak. I'm going to go 5, straight down the middle.
Okay, I think I might go for a 5.5.
Okay.
For the same reasons. I'm going to give her a slightly above 5, because I think she's a funny character, but like I don't think it fits in quite with the aesthetic of Wallace and Gromit, to my mind.
No, it's a little at odds with everything else that's sort of, you know, in the series prior to that, which is kind of a shame, but, you know, the performance is good, and as much as distressing as it is, I do like that moment where she, like, you know, bites herself and pretends that Gromit did it, because it's just so fucked.
Yeah, it is quite fucked. So anyway, that's Wallace and Gromit. Yeah, that's that. I mean, we normally do a ranking, but I think we've pretty much said.
Yeah, I think The Wrong Trousers is kind of unanimously the best one, really.
Yeah, I mean, after that, I'd probably go Close Shave. Actually, no, I'd probably go Wrong Trousers, Were Rabbit, Close Shave, but they're quite close together. Then
I would say I prefer Were Rabbit, personally, just because I think the story has a bit more time to breathe, and it feels more organic to me.
Okay, so yeah, we're going Wrong Trousers, Were Rabbit, Close Shave, and then Grand Day Out, and then at the bottom, Matter of Life and Death.
Yeah, that sounds fair. And I think most people are probably going to agree with us.
And if you don't, you're a fucking twat. Sorry, you are.
You are. And you probably think that if you say you're English, you get sent to prison.
If you say you're English, they bloody lock you up and throw away the key.
Off with your head.
That was Kino Inferno for this week, for this fortnight, for this half a month, however long it's been since the last one.
This time period.
Yeah. There's going to be another one before season 2, which is going to be about the Bateman film franchise. We'll be covering 1989's Bateman, followed by Bateman Returns, and then Bateman Forever, Bateman and Robin. We will not be doing the Bateman Begins Dark Knight trilogy, and we might touch on the Bateman from this year, but probably only. We're
more looking at the OG Bat films.
The Bateman.
The Bateman films, yeah.
We've not discussed if we're going to do Adam West's Bateman movie. If we have time, we might throw it in.
But we'll see. It's there's a lot to talk about with Bateman.
Certainly, this won't be the end of our Bateman discussion. So if we don't do Bateman 66, we'll do it another time. Because I certainly want to talk about it, and I think Marc is aware that outside of the animated series, the Adam West Bateman is my favourite incarnation of Bateman.
I am aware, because you have that lovely Blu-ray set that I'm very jealous of.
Yes, there's so many episodes and they're all fantastic. Then closely followed by the Nolan trilogy. But I don't know, man. The older I get, the more I like silly Bateman, I guess.
I think, well, you know, we'll get into this more when we do the episode, but you know what my favourite Bateman film is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I was going to probably try and make that be a surprise for the episode, and you've gone and ruined it.
Oh, who gives a shit? Anyway, and at some point we might do some of the animated Batemans, but there's too many of them
there's a lot of those. But yeah, series 2 is on its way. We might have another episode. We've discussed something, yes, we have.
I can't remember what this is.
I'm glad I keep receipts.
Do you mean Behind the Mask?
No, it's another thing. Oh,
well, spoiler alert for one of the bonus episodes we're doing in the midst of season 2 then. What are you talking about? What are we doing? Let's do some sizzle.
I was gonna try and keep it as a surprise, but there's a special day that's coming up.
Oh right, yeah, okay, sure.
There's a special day that's coming up, and for no real reason, we want to do an episode to celebrate.
Yeah,
it.
sorry, I completely forgot about this. Yes. So for no reason at all, on April 20th, we're going to release a special bonus episode on the film Smiley Face. For no reason at all.
Idle Hands is going to be my pick for that one.
Okay, sure. Oh, it's actually going to be a double whammy. Okay.
It's going to be a double whammy, baby.
Fuck me. When am I going to have time to record that, Marc? Just checking my schedule. On air. Okay. No, we can do it. It's going to be tight, but we can do it.
We can do it. It's fine. And we're releasing that for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah, we're releasing it on April 20th, which I stress for no particular reason.
No reason at all.
It's just going to be released on April 20th. Don't worry about it.
Neither of those films have any connection to that date whatsoever.
Not at all. Not a sausage. We're just doing it for the hell of it.
We'll see you then.
Well, hang on. First of all, you can find us on YouTube at Kino Inferno. You can find us on Spotify at Kino Inferno. You can find us on Apple Podcasts at Kino Inferno. Twitter, it's like Kino_Inferno or some shit.
Yeah, because some fucker already took it.
Stitcher, don't know what that is. Not on it. Deezer, don't know what that is or if we can even be on it. LimeWire, no one has bothered to put us on LimeWire. It's a free podcast, why would you? You can literally download it for free from any of the sites that I just mentioned. We're not on the Pirate Bay, nor do we support the Pirate Bay. Wink. Yeah, so I guess we'll probably see you on April the 20th before we see you for Bateman. Or it's looking like it anyway.
We'll see you on the 20th, hopefully. For no reason whatsoever.
We'll definitely, for no reason at all, see you on the 20th and talk about Smiley Face and Idle Hands. And then at some point, either before, after, or during that, we'll also drop our Bateman episode. So,
it's everything but Series 2 at this point, guys.
We just simply refuse to release Series 2. We refuse. Okay? It's not happening.
Just get used to it.
We will release a series worth of episodes as one-off specials before we even do season 2. So fuck you. Alright? Fuck you. No, but on a serious note, I've been Aidan.
And I've been Marc.
And I've been Wallace off of Wallace and Gromit. Fuck, I love cheese.
Mmm, 64 slices of American cheese. 64. 63. 2. 1.
Have you been up all night eating cheese?
I think I'm blind.
Good day to you.